Here we go. We've opened the meeting already officially in the superintendent's conference room where we held an executive session. So we did our call to order and the pledge. Are there any adjustments?
Sorry, there are no further adjustments to the agenda. There was one change to the calendar that went out, and it's a very minor change, and we'll cover that during discussion. Yep.
Excellent. Okay. May I have a motion, please?
I move that the board determines that the student's actions were deliberately disobedient, that the removal of the student is necessary for the peace and usefulness of the school, that based on these facts, the board hereby expels the student effective immediately for an indefinite period of time, and that the superintendent notify the student and his or her parents of this action in writing with the copy of these written findings of facts and conclusions. If the student is expelled for an indefinite period of time, a reentry plan will be prepared by the superintendent in consultation with the student and his or her family. The parent and student have the right to request readmission pursuant to law.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Abstain? Oh, we weren't there. Yep. Okay. Student is expelled. Delighted that we have Jobs for Maine graduates here to present to us. Pretty exciting program, and we're pleased to highlight it, and to see so many students here is wonderful. I'd like to introduce Jen Dumont, who is the JMG specialist, to come forward and
our leadership council.
And our leadership. Anybody and everybody, come on down.
Hello. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Scott, a senior at Wyndham High School and the president of the incredible JMG Leadership Council. This is my first year in JMG. I wish this is my fourth. Ms. Dumont and this program are amazing. On behalf of myself and all the awesome individuals behind me, thank you. Full plates, full potential in JMG. We are excited that this project will be a part of the legacy we leave behind as we move on from Wyndham High School. We appreciate the opportunity to show what we learn and present our plan, food for thought, and help eliminate food insecurity at Wyndham High School.
Hello, I am Christopher Henderson. I'm a senior at Wyndham High School. I've been in JMG since 6th grade, so this is my 7th year, and I can't believe I'm finally graduating. I feel very fortunate to be a part of the JMG Leadership Council and have the opportunity to make a positive difference in our school. In preparation for this project, we did a lot of research, including putting out a survey to around 70 students in our school, and we found some very disheartening and interesting information. The most impactful to discover is that as many as 1 in 4 students in our school face food insecurity or not provided with enough food daily to sustain a healthy body, resulting in malnourishment and reduced learning and productivity. During the school years, nutritional deficiencies directly undermine students' cognitive capacities. It also leads to significantly higher rates of anxiety, depression, substance abuse, and suicidal ideation. According to our survey, 70% of students rely on and enjoy the food provided at Wyndham High School, but the barrier that a majority of teenagers face is accessing food and eating during the time provided. A large number of students state that they are not hungry at 7 in the morning, and many face anxiety eating in the cafeteria.
Hi, my name is Dante Felix. I'm currently a senior and I have been in JMG since I was a sophomore. I can't begin to tell you how much I've learned about myself, but more importantly, about empathy and how to show kindness to others. Just like for this project, this compassion project, as we like to call it in this class, has brought all of 3 of our JMG junior and senior classes together, and we are very grateful for that. As a team, we came up with a plan to offer free food to students throughout the school day. We understand that COVID protocols might have made our plan difficult to enact, but we are very happy that we returned to a time when eating in classrooms is again permitted. We will have a fully stocked cart in a public yet discreet location in the school. We think a good location might be the Student Services Lobby for many reasons. but mainly to not bring unwanted stigma to kids who need food. We provide a variety of nutritious snacks on the top 3 shelves, items such as granola bars, crackers, dried fruit, water, and fresh fruit whenever possible. The bottom shelf will be stocked with non-perishables for kids to take home for after-school and weekend meals. They could discreetly place items such as macaroni and cheese, peanut butter, oatmeal, canned soup, and graham crackers in their backpack. Furthermore, through personal stories of our classmates, we discovered that taking free food is sometimes very triggering. So we thought that Ms. Dumont could have items available in her room for students and teachers to access as well. Then this is for kids who need a trusted adult for support. I think I speak for all of us when I say that the most meaningful aspect of this project has been hearing the personal stories of our classmates and who have faced food insecurities in their lives and how it has impacted them on much more than a physical level. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Isabella Favreau, a senior here at WHS and a proud member of the JMG Leadership Council. I've been in JMG with Ms. Dumont for 2 years, I wish longer, and it has impacted me profoundly. Without JMG, I would not be where I am today, talking to you, and I would certainly not be on track with planning to graduate, so thank you for this opportunity. I am humbled to share this very personal story of one of our very own Leadership Council members' experience with food insecurity. When I was 3 or 4 years old, my parents got divorced. At that time, a lot of things changed for my older sister and me. We went back and forth between parents in a very inconsistent way. It seemed like almost every day, and often, I did not have what I needed for school. There was a huge difference between my dad's house and my mom's house when it came to food. Often at my dad's, there would be no dinner or breakfast, sometimes no food at all. I didn't have breakfast at home, and I wasn't able to pack snacks like all the other kids. We qualified for reduced lunch, but I didn't ever have the dollar I needed to pay for it. I spent most lunch periods hungry in the library. My friends would sometimes share their snacks. Year to year, it changed. Sometimes my teachers would notice and give me food or buy me lunch, but I couldn't depend on it. That is when we started relying on the backpack program. It literally saved me, but with it came lots of shame, as other students noticed that I needed to take big bags of food home for my family from school. To this day, I often don't have the normal feelings to indicate that I am hungry. I typically don't know until my stomach actually growls. I still have a hard time accepting free food due to the trauma associated with food insecurity as a child. So free lunch for everyone is wonderful, but it still triggers me. The Food for Thought project will definitely still help me and other kids like me out. But through telling my personal story, our Leadership Council now understands that solving the hunger problem is a much more complex issue, and has led us to not only want to feed our hungry students, but even more, provide a way for them to access resources and counseling and overcoming the trauma. We know this starts with a trusted adult like Miss Dumont, who they can tell their story to. It is an honor to share this story with you in hopes that kids in our school don't have to face the same trauma and shame associated with food insecurity. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ella Pompe, and I'm currently a junior at Windham High School, and this is my second year in JMG. I'm so proud of the work that we have done on this project, and I'm so passionate about it, I'm even willing to public speak. It is our intention to have this project in motion by the start of the 2022-2023 school year. Our JMG Leadership Council will have a special focus group who oversees the food cart, including periodic food donations, pickups, and restocking the cart daily. To keep Food for Thought running, we will also plan fundraising activities to raise money and awareness for childhood food insecurity in our community. We hope you believe in our idea as much as we do. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Anybody else? No? Wow. That was impressive. First of all, thank you to the students for speaking. It was extremely professional and extremely profound, and personal stories really go right to the heart. So thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. I think you're doing a tremendous service for our school. and our community, and please let us know if there's anything that we can do as a board to help support you, because it's amazing what you're doing. So thank you for your leadership and your participation, and thank you to Miss Dumont, who appears to be a hero herself, which is wonderful. Would you care to?
Sure, I just want to ask a couple questions. So first of all, I'm curious to know if anyone is planning on doing the public speaking portion for the upcoming conference, CDC conference for JMG, which I'm seeing someone being pointed at, Ms. Dumont.
Jason Scott.
Jason, you're doing that? Okay.
He's performing tomorrow, so send him some.
Yay!
So Wyndham High School's JMG program is actually one of 4 JMG programs within RSU 14. Fernanda Hinoza runs the middle school program. We also have Julie Stone, who is a credit completion specialist. Whew. Sorry, Julie. I knew you had a title in there somewhere. Carrie Kowalczyk, who has been, Carrie, there you are. And then Jen Dumont. And JMG has been, yeah, we should clap. JMG has been an outstanding partner to RSU 14. The positions that we have, typically we pay about a third of those positions. JMG actually pays the rest of those positions, and most of those funds that then support are done through private businesses. Every major corporation in the state of Maine involved in funding JMG, and actually was in a meeting with JMG today. $19 million of new cash that now has been brought into JMG through various businesses and also through some grants to continue work with supporting JMG. Over 10,000 students a year in the state of Maine. Students who are in JMG programs actually graduate at a higher percentage and also do better as far as college attendance. And JMG now, this is one of the most exciting things about this group, now is able to support students all the way from middle school through college. And now we have specialists that are each of the main colleges and community colleges that are picking up kids day one from all the different programs and working to remove any barrier. So you guys tonight, first of all, you wonderfully represent JMG as a company, but then also amazing speech. And so if you're going to be doing your presentation tomorrow, I look forward to Emma Judge. So I probably won't be assigned your group, but it's a lot of fun to watch. And I also know tonight, actually in Thorndike, Maine, the JMG group is presenting their Full Plates, Full Potential project to their board as well. So you guys are doing an outstanding job, and to all of our JMG special and support people doing a fantastic job. And it's just nice to see you here and talking about your passion. Incredible job.
Thank you.
Chris, would you mind just explaining for the general public what exactly JMG is again, real quick?
Sure. So
just as a refresher.
JMG, it's actually Jobs for Maine Graduates. It's JMG. It is part of Jobs for America's Graduates, and its goal is to actually remove barriers for students. It was created by the legislature under McKernan, and every governor has supported JMG through state appropriations and then also through the people that sit on the board are BIW, Unum, large corporations, LL Bean, in the state of Maine. And really, JMG is being recognized now as one of those parts for workplace development, recognizing one of the grants today was BIW. BIW is looking for students in the pipeline to be able to support some of their pieces, but they do career development, do a lot of soft skills work, do a lot of project-based work, much like these guys, go ahead and identify problems. But in addition, it's a great support, it's a great connection. And Maine's JMG program for the last 18 years has been the top performing program of all Jobs for America graduate programs nationwide for as far as percentage of students graduating, and I'm trying to remember what the other metric is, but fantastic organization, and I'm just so pleased that we have the support of 4 programs through that.
As someone who worked very closely with JMG, I see lots of familiar faces out there for the adults in my day job. You all are incredibly lucky to be part of this program, as you've all said. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the work that you're doing with Full Plates and Full Potential. Thank you to all your advisors, and I do hope too the board realizes how important JMG is to the students and to the school, and thank all of you for continuing to support that with our portion. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Anyone else?
So I have a little bit different perspective about GMG. About January, February 2019, my company had its initial meeting with JMG, and then COVID hit. And so it's been on pause for the last 2 years, but we recently had a reconnection meeting about 6 or 8 weeks ago. So we will be ramping up now that pretty much 100% of COVID restrictions have gone by the wayside, at least for the moment. Hopefully, everybody cross your fingers, right? That we will be assisting JMG students across the state with learning interviewing skills from our HR department. I'm the VP of HR Performance Food Group. So my staff is going to be helping teach people how to interview for a job. And also having tours so students can come in and work with each department and learn what they do and what there is for jobs out there. And to learn, which is something very important for me, you don't need a college education to get a great job. Okay? I am case in point. I do not have a college education, and I was Vice President in a national company by my mid-40s. It can be done with a lot of hard work and a lot of nose to the grindstone, and you don't have to have $100,000 in debt to do it. So that's kind of my soapbox. But from a business perspective, you know, employment is really, really tough right now. It has been for the last couple of years. I don't see it getting better. And so the quicker that companies can get high school students engaged in a career path and get them to a situation where they can come to work for a great company and get supported through their education and their career, it just benefits both parties. And I look very much forward to partnering with JMG in the future. Thank you.
I'm the program coordinator for the backpack program. So I want to thank you. I can't tell you how much I want to thank you for your Full Plates, Full Potential project, because it was always a problem for us. We could always do the elementary grades, but again, nobody, you get an older student, there is no way you're ever going to get them to take a bag of food home. You know, and so thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's wonderful. I am so proud of all of you, and I'm sure, believe me, I'm sure the students appreciate it. Thank you again. Good job.
Inspirational group. You wowed us all. Thank you so much for coming and speaking, and keep up the good work. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move into public input. Just give a
Unless you want to stay.
pause.
You're welcome to stay. You might have home. Thank you all.
It is warm. No, I'm hot. Okay, we are going to move into public input. I thought I'd review some of the ground rules again. Never hurts to give a reminder. When you come before the podium, if you please state your name and the town you reside in. We're still allowing 3 minutes per person. I know it doesn't feel great to be cut off, and it doesn't feel great to be the one cutting you off, but we have a pretty large agenda, and so we just want to limit it to 3 minutes. Orderly conduct at our meetings does not permit spontaneous discussion from the audience. Speakers should direct their comments to the chair, please. Gossip, defamatory comments, and abusive or vulgar or threatening language are not permitted. Complaints about individual students or employees are not permitted. We have a process for that. For folks to address concerns, it's policy KEB, complaints about school personnel, and that policy can be found under the board tab under policies. That would be the appropriate way to address any concerns you might have. So we're going to move forward, and I'm hopeful we can conduct this meeting in a respectful manner. Who would like to go first?
Good evening, Ken Clark. And I've held this book up quite a bit, so I thought I would just read from it for a change. This is one of the books that's an option for kids to read, and there's some different, language, repetition, rhythm, alliteration, some things they can get out of the book, and they can write a poem about it. So I'm going to read some of the things in the book and tell me if you're inspired by this. This chapter is Gender, Sex, Sexuality, Romance Terms. There's about 22 of them. I won't get through them all, but I'll just go and see how we feel about writing a poem after this, after I'm done. A gender nutrius doesn't identify as any gender. This is for 10-year-olds, by the way. Androdronymus identifies as a third gender that blends male and female characteristics. Bigender, gender fluid, sometimes identifies as male and sometimes as female. Cisgender, I wondered about that one because that was on the handout. I didn't know what it was till now. It's the opposite of transgender. Gender matches their birth sex. Gender questioning is unsure about where they belong on the gender spectrum. Genderqueer, no binary. Gender identity doesn't fit neatly into male or female categories. Intersex, born with sexual anatomy, organs, or chromosomes that doesn't seem to fit the typical definitions of female or male. Replaces the outdated and offensive term hermaphrodite or something like that. My 10-year-old wasn't sure what it was. And, transgender. Feels that gender is different from their birth sex. So I guess they get explained to this if they're not sure. I'm not sure. Feels that gender is different from their birth sex, whether or not they have physically changed their body, something good for a 10-year-old to think about, or outward presentation. A transgender man is someone who currently identifies as a male. I didn't know that. A transgender woman is someone who currently identifies as female. Terms for sexuality, 10-year-olds. Asexual, not physically attracted to anyone. Bisexual, physically attracted to both men and women. Cupiosexual, doesn't feel sexual attraction, but is still interested in sex. That one I'm not sure about. Graysexual, mostly doesn't feel sexual attraction, but does occasionally. Heterosexual, physically attracted to people of the opposite gender. Homosexual, physically attracted to people of the same gender. Pansexual, physically attracted to people across the gender spectrum. Now for 10-year-olds, we're going to the term romance inclination. Okay? Aromantic, A-R-O-M-A-N-T-I-C. Not romantically attracted to anybody. Biromantic, romantically attracted to both men and women. Cupioromantic, doesn't feel romantic attraction, but is still interested in romance. For a 10-year-old, I guess this is okay. Heteroromantic, romantically attracted to people of the opposite gender. Homeoromantic, romantically attracted to people of the same gender. Panromantic, romantically attracted to people across the gender spectrum. Queeromantic, doesn't understand the difference between romantic and platonic love.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is in the book. It's.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
But I got a poem you want to write?
Who's next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Rum Frost. I'm a Wyndham parent. I'm going to speak on this only because I feel like it's really important to speak about what is causing separation, what's causing unity. And when Jenny made a comment of, people harassing her, in the public comment, this really has to be clarified. So in the public comments on March 2nd and 9th, Jenny Butler stated that she did nothing wrong with her Facebook post regarding critical race theory. She said she was not pushing an agenda, and she said the parents have told lies about her in public comments. I'd like to read for the board and the community who heard Jenny Butler's allegations the full content of the Facebook post in question so we can keep in mind where this all started. This is the actual Facebook post. And what I think is important is because we keep hearing excerpts out of what was said, and I think that this has to be stated. Jenny's only comment was, "I think this is interesting and definitely better to be prepared." And then she posted the article that she thought was interesting, and she posted the article that she felt that maybe people really needed to be prepared. The article states, when parents in Newtown, Connecticut began to see CRT fear-mongering creep into the school board meetings in nearby districts, they knew it was only a matter of time before it came into their own community. So as parents often do, they got to work right away to protect their schools. Formed after the murder of George Floyd last May, the group Newtown Allies for Change organized a coalition of 30 parents to sit down on a weekly school board meeting across the region and take careful notes of any anti-CRT rhetoric. After 3 months of documenting public comments, the group was more than prepared when the anti-CRT rhetoric came from Newtown. How prepared? So prepared that they had designed speech ready to directly counter any outburst from the right-wing extremists. The parents were organized and disciplined. The speeches were always well-informed and delivered in a calm, level-headed manner. If a conspiracy theory wasn't brought up that night, they'd hold on to their counter speech until the next meeting. They had a good plan, and they always stuck to it. This greatly angered the anti-CRT crowd, and soon they stopped speaking. Eventually, they stopped showing up altogether, and all because a group of parents came together, got organized, and fought back. Fighting back against extremism can be very scary, but the results are more than worth it. You want to connect with empowered women in your community and get training that you need to start making good trouble? Take the first step by clicking here. That was the post. Now, my understanding is, and I could be wrong, is that this district does not have CRT on their curriculum. So what I don't understand is how, and we talked about, and actually Mike made a good point, I think this needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Day. On March 2nd, a teacher said that a group of parents seemed to be bringing up the conspiracy theory of the week that isn't relevant in our community. Ironically, the conspiracy theory of critical race theory being in our schools was not even mentioned until Jenny Butler, a school board member, made her post about it. Before that, we knew it was in California for one, but we didn't think it was in Maine. She literally brought this issue into our district, and so many of our concerns have stemmed from it. Last week, Jenny said community members are telling lies about her, that she did nothing wrong, and that she removed the post because of the nasty comments attached. If she removed it because of the comments, why did she apologize in her removal post? And why apologize at all if there was nothing wrong with it? Jenny, you're getting carried away in your own defense. No lies have been told. Then she tried to spin the meaning of her post about CRT as some sort of scout way of being prepared. Prepared for what? Prepared to silence parents who would speak out rightfully against critical race theory. Being prepared in Scouts is meant to be a merit, not used for social or political tactic. I have an Eagle Scout too. This has nothing to do with attacking Jenny Butler as a person. You could be the best teacher, church member, Scout mom, neighbor. I do not question that. But the fact remains that you made those posts. And what's worse is you continue to stand by them. Your posts and your defense of the ideas behind them make me uncomfortable as a parent with you being any influence on my child's social and educational environment. It also made me uncomfortable when you berated Stephen Napolitano in the audience, then in the same breath lectured adults in the community to handle ourselves more civilly for the children watching. Jenny, you used your free speech to make those posts. You sit on this board because you have free speech in the private sector. I have free speech too, and just because you don't like how I express my concerns about your posts or your position, that doesn't make it offensive or untrue. This is a big deal. It's not going away. CRT is not allowed in the state curriculum. Teachers are not allowed to teach about white privilege. It's not controversial that we're questioning this. It was unethical to repost the fear-mongering message that brought division and unrest to our community. You can't rewrite history and make yourself a victim. I'm here for our children, and from what I've heard, it seems you're here for you. You said our requests for your resignation are not fair. That's right. Life isn't fair. It's just. And we get what we earn. And I really hope this board will do the responsible thing and enact a Code of Ethics Review Committee and some consequences to protect the community from unethical behavior by the members of this board that we've elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Napolitano, and I was very disappointed in the words that Jenny Butler used last week, calling me, well, people can watch it. I didn't make things up. In fact, there's another post that Jenny did, and it's still on her Facebook page, talking about white privilege, which is classic CRT. So I'm going to read it to you so you can understand why we are not okay with somebody in a highly influential position making decisions for our children's education. This is what Jenny wrote. I have white privilege. I acknowledge it. I believe firsthand experiences from people of color. Every day I do my best to keep up with the news, not because I need to be, but because I want to help others. Mr. Pavlovitz says it better than I. And then she quotes him. When I hear white people say, I just ignore all the political stuff, or I don't look at the news, it reminds me that America is still afflicted with inequity. The white people here are still afforded the option of indifference solely by our pigmentation, and that while that is true, we have work to do. Until we are so tethered in mutual relationship to vulnerable people that we refuse to look away from reality because we know our destinies are tied together. America is not the place we imagine it is. It is not the place of stirring songs and the stratospheric anthems and the glorious but whitewashed story we tell ourselves about it. As long as we have the luxury of ignoring difficult reality of America, we are perpetuating it. That's the real news, white friends. Don't look away. So, judging people by their skin color versus character is what I'm hearing. No, I don't want kids to grow up that way. They should not be judging other children by their skin color at all. The kids have a hard enough time growing and learning in this world that we have them in right now. We should be teaching kids to overcome adversity, all right? Learning how to deal with challenges. Did Martin Luther King do that? Rosa Parks do that? Oprah Winfrey got fired from a TV job, and they said that she wasn't fit for TV news. We should be teaching stories like that. Michael Jordan was cut from his basketball team in high school. How did he do that? That's the stuff we should be talking about. Jackie Robinson, I mean, that's a huge story in itself. Last I knew, Lincoln freed the slaves back in 1863. It took a couple years. There was a lot of struggle in America. That's the stuff that we should be teaching the children. The 1960s, the Civil Rights Movement, was a very, very dark time in our country's history. We should be teaching about that. That's how we teach kids to overcome. It doesn't matter what their skin color is. We all need to join together and help kids make a difference in our community. Children do not need adult insecurities. They need encouragement. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Hello, everyone. My name is Helen May. I am a parent of a couple of children in this district. I was not prepared to speak tonight, and I wish that I had a speech because the folks who have been coming up to speak with you, perhaps they aren't making public Facebook posts, but they're creating private groups where they can go and talk about how they're going to address the things that are bothering them, whether it's about how gender is taught in our schools, about CRT. I see screenshots of what's happening. First of all, critical race theory is a graduate level class taught in law schools. But in the last year and a half, I guarantee you, probably 2 years ago, none of these people knew anything about it. But it's become a a phrase that describes any racist teaching that they don't want to be taught to their children. And the fact of the matter is, we are a country that's based on white privilege. There were some very ugly tales about this country, some ugly truths about this country that is not wrong for people to learn. And when people start talking about Martin Luther King and talking about how he talked about in his famous speech, they very often don't go beyond the phrase that he used about how the color of your skin shouldn't be as important as the content of your character. He later went back and was sorry that he hadn't said that without elaborating more, because it had been used against him so many times, and had been used against the civil rights movement and the people who worked for it so many times. Because as a social construct, race is much more complicated than that. And if children are learning about redlining in our schools, if they're learning about the Greensboro Massacre, this is a lot of these things that these folks don't want to be taught to their children. Or the fact that we do have white privilege. If a policeman stops my kid in a car, I don't have to worry that they're going to get shot and killed like a mother in any city in America. I mean, that's just the sad truth of the matter. So anyhow, I'm not sure why the context of this keeps coming up. They want to criticize Jenny's putting out this particular article. She's not wrong, because this is happening. It's not a conspiracy theory. This is happening in school boards across the country where people are being organized to overwhelm school boards to talk about these sort of things because they don't want a certain quality. Anyhow, sorry, I'm a little shaky here. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak? I don't see any movement toward the podium, so I'm going to close public input and move on to the superintendent's report.
Sure, and I'm going to be something I'm usually not. I'm going to be super brief tonight because we have a very action-packed agenda. I just want to say, first of all, how proud I am of our JMG kids here tonight. Just a fantastic program. We're fortunate to get the support, but so proud when kids come up, and especially the speaking portion, and to be able to come up and just share. So thank you again. I know everyone's left, but maybe they'll go back and watch this. It was interesting going through some old emails this week. 2 years ago today is when we we closed school for 2 weeks for COVID. And it was just interesting going through, and because I knew we were close to the anniversary, just going through emails that were sent out, emails that were prior to that. And Shah, I'll go back to your comment. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that. I want to go back to the last 2 years, but it was just interesting having that opportunity to reflect, first of all, what we've been through, decisions that this board has been required to make, decisions that this board has been forced to make because others chose not to make it, and then putting those decisions on the local level, and just being here on the other side. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to board members. I know this has not been an easy 2 years for you. And thank you for being thoughtful as you've worked through many, many decisions and through many pieces. Also, just want to say thank you to our school staff, our health staff, our administrators, bus drivers, custodians, food service, ed techs, you name it, and substitutes. Oh my goodness, without the substitutes. Just thank you for all that you've done to keep us moving over the last 2 years. So it's just interesting as you kind of hit these milestones. And then you hear about small outbreaks in Europe and in Asia and wonder what our future might look like. But we're not going that direction. We are not going in that direction. We will continue to, and as I shared at last meeting, we'll continue to monitor cases. We'll continue to keep the public updated. That Saturday 10 o'clock time slot seems to be a good spot to get the information out. Just case-wise, we've had a week this week similar to last week, so not seeing numbers jump up or anything like that. It was fun. I did get a chance to get out into some of the buildings today. By the way, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what a leprechaun trap was until I had a chance to. So all those years at the high school, I missed out on a leprechaun trap. So I think there were some leprechauns that were, I'm not going to give away. It's going to be a bad night for leprechauns tonight. But it was fun to see the kids out and about and excited, and so many kids grabbing the project. My favorite was the kid who grabbed me today and said, you notice I had a tie, and he said, "Are you going to be on the news tonight?" And I said, "I hope not." I hope not, but it was a lot of fun to get out and about and to be able to fill some time in with some kids today. Just also wanted to share, because you're going to start seeing a posting. Matt Sear is officially retiring as SRO and the middle schools. Matt has been working here pretty much as long as I've been working here, and he's going to be retiring and heading up north, and that position will be posted within the Windham Police Department sometime in the next couple weeks, and then we'll be looking to fill that position before the end of the school so that we have a little bit of transition time. But congratulations to Matt on reaching that milestone for the retirement. It's going to be a huge loss for us. Matt has had a huge impact on kids and buildings during his time in what was the Windham School Department, and then RSU 14, and then especially working over the last couple of years to connect Raymond in. So congratulations to Matt. There will be an opportunity to congratulate Matt in June. Police Department is organizing that. But we've got a lot tonight with budget. We're also going to talk about site selection. So with that, I'm going to end my report.
Thank you, sir. We're going to move into board roundtable, and I'm going to start with our student rep, if you have anything.
Yes, I just wanted to quickly talk about the One Acts, which we're going to have 2 public showings this weekend on Friday and Saturday at 6:30. There's no cost, so you're welcome to come and see the show. It's definitely an odd one, so I think people will enjoy it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Shar?
To tag back on to Chris's tag on what I said earlier, again, I'm going to encourage the public to become active in local and state politics. Become informed, vote, become active. If you see something headed in a direction you don't want it to go that direction, and it doesn't matter what your political leanings are, get active. Do something about it. For too long, citizens have sat on their couch and complained and not actually used that energy to do something with it. Couple of important notes along those lines. The people in Augusta have the power to dictate what we're going to do next for COVID. So as Chris mentioned, the outbreaks in Asia, I guess most of China right now is in hard lockdown. You know, the world is not as big a place as some people like to think it is. So, you know, God forbid, I hate to even have the words utter out of my mouth, but it could happen again here. So we need to make sure that we have the people in government that we want to be there. Also going along with that, it's not only elected people, but the elected people choose the administrators to run all the state agencies. So, for example, Department of Education. People that we elect hire the people to work in Department of Education. So if you want to see changes coming from Department of Education, you need to start rattling cages in Augusta. There isn't much we can do about it sitting in Windham, Maine. The other thing that I want to bring up tonight is, you know, there's been a lot of talk the last few months about what children have access to for information that parents probably, in most cases, wouldn't want them to have access to it. So, a little bit of cautionary tale here. If you're not paying attention to your children's internet activities, you need to start. And you should have started 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. Especially when they're not under your purview. Not just websites, but online gaming, chat rooms. There's a chat room that I became familiar with in the last year called Discord. There's some pretty scary stuff that I've seen on that website, on that chat group, and kids can just sign up for it, and they have access to talk to anyone else that's on that group. So parents, you need to pay attention. Online gaming. I was pretty ignorant about Xboxes and all that other stuff. Most of those have live gaming where you can play other people that are in the same groups live and they can chat. You need to pay attention to what your kids are doing. They can become friends with people from across the world. Could be another, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, or it could be somebody that's an adult that's a sexual predator, etc. I don't need to go into details on that. We all know the world can be a scary place. Most of the time, even high school students are too young to understand the dangers they could be subject to. They're too young. I remember being a teenager and thinking I was invincible. It's been a long time since I thought I was invincible, but I remember. And they don't understand what their internet activity can do for their lives long term. And not just physical harm, but they could apply for a job in 10, 15 years, and something that they put on social media or online somewhere could be dragged up. We see it every day in the media. Some sports star or Hollywood celebrity or something gets dragged up, or a politician. If it's on the internet for more than 5 seconds, it can be found forever. And if your kids don't understand that, you need to start talking to them. So that will end my second soapbox for this evening, at least for the moment. Thank you.
Anybody else? Marge?
I wanted to publicly thank the PTA. I saw it on Facebook. I'd like to say I was there, but I saw it on Facebook. For whoever hasn't seen it, I think it was great. They bought green carnations for all staff. It was so exciting, and saw this big bucket. I forget what school it was. I think it was the Manchester school. Big bucket there, take one. And it was nice. It was really cool that somebody thinks of all of the staff at a particular time. It happens to be St. Patrick's Day. Maybe corned beef and cabbage tomorrow. So anyway, thank you so much for the PTA, because, there's a lot of care and thought that comes from those, which is great.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Me.
Okay.
I made a sarcastic comment last week, and for that I apologize. I hope that my fellow board members, Mr. Howell, and the community accept my apology. My frustration got the best of me. I ran for a position on school board to support the students and the staff of RSU 14. Focusing on the needs of students and staff has always been and will continue to be my #1 priority.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say, I know I sent you an email as far as the civil rights team not being able to meet with us until May 4th.
That's changed.
It has.
It has. We're back to the original date.
We are.
We are.
Fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and amend my comment then.
Please do.
Thank you. So when I hear terms like white privilege being thrown around, folks, there's nothing that gets my blood boiling more than that. As a parent of a minority child, do you honestly expect me to tell my child that I have more privilege than she does because of the color of her skin? What kind of a world are we actually living in where I am expected as a parent to tell my child that I have more options than she does because of my white privilege? And so we hear that CRT is not in the schools, and I believe to a degree that it is not in our schools to the extent that it is in, say, other parts of the country. But just today, she had a conversation with me about equity. And I asked her, what is the definition of equity? What does that mean exactly? And she said, well, you just don't understand. I hear jokes all the time. And I said, you are always going to hear jokes. and you're always going to hear snide remarks. And when you hear those things, you need to know that you are better than the people that are saying those things. And you need to put yourself up on a pedestal. And you need to tell yourself that I am going to do better than that individual. There is nothing more that gets my blood boiling than somebody telling me that I have white privilege. I can honestly tell you folks that when I was living in a homeless shelter in Boston, Massachusetts, I did not say to myself that I had white privilege. When I had to stand on an overpass in downtown Minneapolis because my life had gone to complete hell, and my ex-wife was off doing all sorts of you-know-what, I did not say to myself that I have white privilege. We need to stamp this out of our schools immediately. And I'm tired of hearing it. I will not tolerate somebody telling me that I have white privilege. And I think that that is why I am so eager to try and figure out where we are going with this civil rights team. Because I want to know what the end game is. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've done board roundtable. We're going to move into A-Team cost centers. We're knee-deep in budget presentations, and I'd like to welcome Ryan and Karen for the Windham High School to come on down. Let's talk budget.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. When you take a look at my proposed budget, if you look at the cover sheet, do they have the same cover sheet? They do. Yep. There's an increase in math. So I am asking for an additional math teacher. We've talked about that before. We have, since I've been the principal, one of the things that I've been trying to push for is Algebra 1 being the entry-level math class at Windham High School. That sets up all students to get through Algebra 2 before leaving, give them as many opportunities as they can have moving forward. We have done a nice job moving in that direction. Our last couple years.
Hang on just a minute. What?
Can you be heard? You don't have a microphone.
Where are the microphones?
They're down on the floor. They're on the floor.
Somebody knew you were coming, Ryan.
Maybe the people at home. Need the microphone. Nobody in here needs to. Yeah, I only need one.
He said, I think he said he heard you in the back, way in the back, in the booth, behind the closet.
We're good. We're good. Powerful microphones. Getting me from the floor.
Powerful voice.
He said you're all set, go forward.
Thank you. So, we'd like to add a teacher, and that will give us the opportunity to add a Algebra 1 everyday class, so that we are changing the instruction and not the curriculum. So we're providing additional time and additional instruction, additional opportunities for practice within the school day, and more students will have access to that Algebra 1 curriculum earlier, and then be able to move through Geometry, Algebra 2, and then have a variety of choices after that. By adding a teacher to do that position, it allows me not to remove some of the upper end elective choices, the financial algebra, the college algebra, the stats, AP stats, and those things, which if we didn't add the position would probably have to be limited or on a rotating basis so that we could offer this core curriculum class. So there's an addition of a math teacher. You'll see that there's a little bit of a change in science, but that's just in certification. So we had a life science teacher leave, and we hired a physical science teacher. We still are able to cover all of our classes, but in the sciences, they're unique. They have different certifications. The other item of note is that I'm asking to move the attendance clerk to a full-time secretary in the main office. She does more than the attendance work for us, and I think we should pay her for the position that she's doing. There's another little bit of a stipend that we're asking for the robotics team. They're doing some cool things, and they're going from small robots to bigger robots, so that costs a little bit of money, and we need to support the students, and we also, I think, should be supporting the advisor in the club. I have very minimal changes within my budget other than those, my operating budget. I think we have a healthy but appropriate budget for our teachers and our students that we've maintained for the last few years.
I have a question. Go ahead. Front page with the student count. Can you talk to me a little bit about the reduction in, we go from 1,036 students to 966, and it looks like there's big chunks.
So we have had through the pandemic, we've had a number of students move to homeschooling.
Okay.
I anticipate that many of those students will return to us next year, but we have, the numbers that we provide are not, aren't based on that. It's not, we can't predict if they will or if they will not come back. We also had a number of seniors who have opted to go to the adult ed route this year. They have found some success in the workplace during COVID with the every other day, and there's more flexibility in the adult ed program than there is in a traditional high school program. So that's, you'll see some of that decrease in the numbers there for the senior class and then the junior class as well.
So any concern, you can only go with the numbers that you have. You start out the school year and all of a sudden those numbers, people pop back into the high school about staffing and.
We have our class sizes are pretty respectable at the high school, so we have some ability to move some things around if we needed to. And then with the move to the block schedule this year, or actually last year, but in a full every other day, that allows for much more balance in the schedule for class sizes as well. So
Okay.
I'm not super concerned.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? Marge?
Yeah, I just have one. You kind of like, it looks like you just move people around, that's okay. Except you do have an additional math. Do you have room? I thought kind of like all your
We'll find
rooms
room.
were full. So I was wondering I was just curious where you were putting this other
We'll find them.
class.
So many of these students, we share classrooms and we move, teachers move throughout the building, so it's not the situation where every teacher has their own class. But in case of the math teacher, a lot of these students would be possibly in a study hall that would be in a room anyway. So we're going to have teachers in the same room, kids in the same room for a couple of periods getting math instruction instead of being in one room for math and then moving to another room for a study hall, and that opens that study hall room up for something else.
So you do a lot of shuffling with your cards, I get it.
We do.
Thanks.
Ms. Mitchell's very good at this.
That was all I had.
Any other questions for Ryan? Yep.
Just a couple questions so I can understand. Just a couple questions so I can understand what the line items are. On page 245, the first entire chunk on the top, temporary employee, MPERS.
Main state retirement system.
Main state what?
Main state retirement system, so that would be the amount
Oh, okay.
to cover any main first payments.
Okay. So what is that?
Main public employees retirement system.
Okay.
Teachers what would fall into this line aren't eligible for Social Security.
Oh, okay.
All under the main state retirement system.
Okay, so, okay, I gotcha. And then on page 246, the line item, third down from the top, professional technical services. I see GMJ is down there in non-special ed tutoring. If you could just provide some color around those. I know we already talked about GMJ, but.
jobs for Maine graduates, so that's our percentage for the jobs for Maine graduates, which is a steal. So we paid $25,000 for each of those 3 positions that hold a teaching load, and then non-special education tutoring is if we have a student with a 504 or some type of an injury, or for one reason or another needs to receive some tutoring. It allows for us to help with that cost.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Anybody else? Nope. Nope. Wow. Lucky you. Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate it.
I think you got off this fast last year, too.
Thank you.
Wyndham Middle School, we'll see if Drew Patton is as lucky.
I think his was faster last year, too.
I think he said, I think he said for about 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about Wyndham Middle School and the budget. I want to start off by going back to what I presented in the fall about our student goals, or school goals and student outcomes. And so those are worded in kid-friendly language. So those are, I'm part of the academic community. I can succeed at this, and my ability and confidence grow with my effort. And lastly, this work has value to me. And so I just want to bring those up in terms of they're aligned to our vision, but our vision is quite large. And I think that has been helpful to us this year in terms of aligning everything that we do to one of those 4 student goals, which aligns back to our the vision that we have for kids. And so we try to focus on that through our staff professional development, through reflections with students, and it's been very helpful. So we'll certainly continue that next year. In terms of my budget, very straightforward. See if I can beat Ryan in terms of time.
We should have timed it.
Same number of teachers, same overall budget line, a few shifts here and there in terms of stipends in those positions, and then overall a reduction in student population. As we talked about before, that large bubble, 2-year bubble, one went through last year to Ryan, and our last is moving through this year. So this is what I call when they were 6th graders, the lunch of 240 6th graders in the cafeteria that ate in 25 minutes. It was super fun. And they are moving through.
Excellent.
That's all I have.
Questions? Anyone? Okay.
So you're showing a decrease of approximately 80 students, but the same amount of staff. And just can you provide some color about what the advantages are, or what challenges you've experienced with more students with the same number of staff, and why it's beneficial to keep the same number of staff with 80 fewer students, please?
Yeah. So I think where that lies is in terms of opportunity, and so that opportunity, when we do the math, is lower class sizes, which tends to mean more attention for students. At the same time, I think we're also thinking about how to be creative and use the staff that we have in an efficient way to support students in need. So some of the discussion with Chris recently and our leadership team and me and Mr. Hill, the assistant principal, is around, are there other ways to use staff to help support what students need. The biggest one right now, I think, is around math, and how do we backfill some of the gaps that have occurred. And so there perhaps is an opportunity there, whether it's through class sizes or through structuring teams in a different, non-traditional middle school way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
And if I can just continue on with that, and I think Drew's hitting upon it, is that we're coming through, we lost a third of a year. We were hybrid for a year. And then this year with difficulty with disruptions. And so anything we can do to reduce class sizes to make sure that we're continuing to fill in gaps while we work through the effects of COVID and what the impact has been.
Just one comment. Even though the class sizes are reduced, I think it's still a reasonable size. And if we were to reduce teachers, the class sizes actually would be enough that it would go over what you would be allowed to have.
Right with this 7th
right.
grade group, right at the 25 cap,
Yeah.
if we went down to 8.
So actually, I think it's great for the kids. I have one grandchild who's still there, and the other one was in the bubble. And I know that group is moving on, and that was a lot of kids.
I think some of the conversation recently, when it comes back to the Katahdin program and alternative education, is our programming is working for the vast majority of students, but our programming also could be more effective for a good number of students as well, and I think that they deserve that too, and so I think we owe it to them and to brainstorm with administration, with the leadership team, with Chris and Christine on, are there other ways to do things before we just solidify that we're going to have 9 teachers at each grade level.
Perfect.
I always forget to turn this back. The last thing also to remember is that Wyndham Middle School actually has the smallest classrooms of any of the buildings. And some of those classrooms, if you get into the 20s, it's almost difficult to actually move around and have, so one of the reasons why we're replacing a middle school is because those classrooms are way undersized.
About 80% of what the DOE standard is.
Just one comment. I've been in those classrooms, and to get from the front of the room to the back of the room, you walk sideways.
Yep.
Beside the desk. I know that for a fact.
Drew, I have a question about page 221.
So mine's not listed as 221.
Oh, are we still on version 5?
I get the small one.
Oh, okay.
Does it? No, I got page 4, 6, 5, 6. Yep.
Tell them what it is.
Okay. So it is a 195% increase in supplies, and it looks like there is a difference of about $20,500. And I'm curious, what are those supplies?
It's a difference in the coding of the lines based off of Stacy Webster in terms of, my understanding of that is there's, based on what's labeled, it limits you to, like equipment line is there's equipment qualifies as one purchase of over $5,000. You can't bunch equipment together.
Okay.
So for instance, if you were to purchase microscopes, multiple, it wouldn't fall under that line. So it's a redistribution based off of the auditors.
So it's
and
just a
Stacy.
reallocation.
Yes. So as you can see, the overall budget has not gone up by that
Yep.
amount. We've shifted. And we typically do that when we look back at what we've spent and what we've labeled. Sometimes we don't hit the nail on the head with building a budget in November as to what the predictions are for next year.
Perfect.
If you go to the line below it, Scott, there's a $19,000 decrease.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Perfect.
Well, we're still on that page, which you don't have, so this is, I don't want to be stumping the chump
all right.
here.
It's easy to do.
There also, I'm just curious about the team leader stipends, which increased by 47%. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so again, shift in labeling.
Oh,
And
okay.
so when I came on board at the middle school 7 years ago, some of the feedback was to kind of revamp the leadership team. And so what we've been doing over a 3-year cycle is every 3 years, we open up those positions again as needed. They're positions that we don't necessarily need to apply for, but they're positions that can end in 1 year or 2 years, or as people resign, retire, whatever it is. And so with that being said, that was a shift in the way that those positions were labeled in the past. So for the most part, the same amount of money that we're talking about, we've shifted a bit of that from department head based, where they received an additional stipend to manage some of the budget associated with that, such as the high school, to more of a team leader position that represents different grade levels, subject areas, special education. That making sense? So again, trying to really align with what the budget says and what we're actually doing, so there's not confusion going forward.
Okay, well done. Thanks. Anybody else? I think you might have been longer, but.
I was, yes. I timed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Up next, we have Randy Crockett with Jordan Small Middle School. Why can't I find that?
See you all. Is there like a time limit? Drew is. Am I supposed to do it
Timer's
less than
going.
Drew? All right, gotta go. We do have a fairly large increase compared to several past years, but I'm happy to say the reason is that the student population in Raymond schools is now headed on the way up, and after many, many years of declining. So we have 56 fifth graders coming in, and right now we only have 2 fifth grade teachers. So we're asking for a third teacher. I don't see how you could possibly do it without the third teacher. I do have the strange anomaly of next year's 8th grade being very small. Yeah, very small. And it's been a small cohort right since kindergarten, and it's gotten even smaller. It was, who knows why. But so the overall student population next year really looks pretty flat. But then the following year, it's going to jump up quite a bit as that next year's 8th grade moves on. The classes coming along behind are mid-40s to high 40s at RES right now. So I think that the position is going to be needed beyond just this year as well. We'd be moving folks into the 6th grade 2 years out and so forth. So that's the only really big item I have. There's also an increase in supplies, and to what you were discussing with Drew, but this is an actual increase in the bottom line. So I have equipment, what would have been an equipment, a set of desks and chairs for a classroom next year to replace some very old stuff, is now in that supply line. So you see that big jump. But there wasn't very much in the equipment line in the current budget, so it is an overall increase. But we've got some ancient furniture, and we got rid of a bunch of stuff in the hybrid model to give us a little space. We still have some in storage, but it's pretty rough, older than some of the staff as well as all the children. So, and there is a change. I think not as old as me. No, there is a change in stipend lines for us too. It has something to do with shifting curriculum, certification stipends into the buildings. So you'll see a small increase in that. It looks like a lot percentage, but it's a small amount of money. But those are really the only three noticeable increases. Everything else is pretty level. Happy to answer
timing
questions.
yourself?
No, I did not. No.
Any questions? Yep.
What type of stipends are we talking about? Sports? Yeah.
These are the academic ones, but
okay.
So we have a building council, which is basically a team leaders group representative from across the building. There's 4 people on that, and then we have a project-based learning team that we started this year, and the 3 of them receive a small stipend. But that was part of last year's budget, the current, what we're living in now, and then the only increase is that working with certification got shifted out of some other lines. It wasn't being carried where it should have been in my budget.
Okay.
I don't know who's paying for it, but it wasn't.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Sure. Did you?
I just want to know, when you sell all the antique furniture, it's going to hit as a credit on your budget, right?
Oh, okay. Can I do that? Am I allowed to do that? Boss?
Because
General fund.
the last time I was in a classroom, which wasn't that long ago, I sat in a chair and I thought, geez, I wonder if this was here when I was here.
I think Bill stores that instead of.
Yeah, they don't want any more of our storage stuff. I know that for a fact.
Anybody else? Nope. Well, that was easy.
All right. Did I beat Drew?
I think you did.
That's all that matters.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Craig Himes from the Katahdin program to come up.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Craig Hames. I'm the director of the Katahdin
Said
program.
that wrong. I'm sorry.
Fine. No, that's fine. So I think I just want to start off with a moment of gratitude because I've been in alternative education for 26 years now, largely at Wyndham Schools and RSU 14, with a stop in South Portland and another school along the way. And I just have to say, if you look at it longitudinally, the amount of support that this body has afforded alternative education has been outstanding, and it's allowed us to meet so many needs of so many kids over the years that had so many struggles and needed a lot of kind of unique and specialized programming in order to meet their needs. And when I look at my friends in alternative education around the state, when they hear about what we're able to do largely in terms of programming, they shake their head and say, we wish we could do that, we need that, and it's happening here in this district. So I wanted to start with just saying that. It's the support that this district has given alternative learning has been really robust and really important. So we take our budget seriously in terms of stewardship and in terms of living within our means. Last year, actually, we took a couple of cuts because we saw a few areas within the budget that seemed like we could trim back a little bit. So we suggested a small cut in our food budget and in our supply budget. And we've been able to live with what we suggested cutting pretty nicely, and so the budget's been great. But through the last couple of years, one really big need has become apparent, which is we've never had a licensed school counselor in the history of the program, and the social, emotional, and academic needs of our students are pretty intense and really require a high level of personalized attention that a school counselor can deliver, both in terms of building bridges with the academics and also in social emotional learning and advisory and project-based learning. A school counselor wears a lot of hats, also in terms of post-secondary planning, transition planning, both for IEPs and regular education students, building bridges with colleges, universities, vocational programs, vocational rehab, all of it. We just need one. So we need one so badly that we were fortunate to get ESSER money to hire a school counselor for this year. And the impact has been incredible in terms of so many things. Our school attendance, we've had recently in the month of March, we've had numerous days with 100% attendance. That just doesn't happen in alternative education, and I can't attribute that exclusively to our school counselor, but I can attribute it to having the personnel that we need to serve the needs of these kids. And we've got that this year, and I'm so grateful because the hardships of COVID have been significant. And we've needed to be very creative and extend beyond the traditional boundaries of what a regular school would do to get kids into classrooms and to learn remedial skills and social emotional skills and communication skills, and all that alternative education is only enhanced with school counselor. So we've added that to the budget. Other than that, everything is pretty much status quo in our budget. And with that, does anybody have any questions?
Can I just add one thing, Craig? Just if you could mention that you will be cutting an ed tech position.
Right.
That will be helping to offset
right
the cost of that position. Just make sure that everyone's clear on that.
Yep.
Okay, on your front page, on your students, and I know you're very flexible in your school, and I get that.
Yep.
But you have, is that 12 for next year? Is that the number of seniors you plan on having, or is that going to be a carryover of what you presently have for juniors? Because I know these numbers get picked up at different times of the year.
So these numbers are our current numbers, actually.
Okay,
these are our current numbers. Actually, I believe it's 11 seniors that we have this year. So but we do have 22 students. So that's current, I believe.
Okay, so you're not sure next year if you'll have 8th graders or...
No, we won't have 8th graders.
Oh, you won't
the 8th grade was never meant to be there. I didn't
mean, I'm sorry, I meant 9th graders.
9th graders, there's been some dialogue with the middle school.
Okay.
And there's a need, a pretty significant need to perhaps engage a handful of 9th graders. And philosophically, I think the earlier we can get kids that clearly need the program, the sooner we can intervene and change the trajectory. So I'm for it. Having said that, I also understand that there's a big need within the high school, and so we want to make sure it's equitable between 10th and 11th graders and 9th graders. But the sooner we can get kids in the door, you have that longitudinal experience with kids, you form relationships, they grow over time, it's helpful.
So as long as you have the space constrictions that you presently have, you're basically limited to approximately 22 or
23. 23 was because we had more students that could drive themselves. We're really constrained by our vans, but also the physical space. As anybody's ever been in Katahdin, it's not huge. So that's really, when we have 100% attendance like we've had recently, it's tight.
Yeah, well, okay, but great program. I love it, and thank you for letting me use the kids for backpack program
they love helping you out. Any other questions?
Yes. I'm a huge fan of alternative education. And so what I'm curious about is, your cover sheet says that you're going down one student, but it sounds like that might end up changing, correct?
Well, last year we were able to accommodate 23 because more students drove. This year, more students take the van, and so we're at 22, and it looks like we'll be at about 22, could go to 23. It's hard, it kind of depends on transportation needs and if kids can drive themselves.
Okay. So transportation is the only thing that's holding us back from adding more kids to this program? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, that's kind of a constriction point. There also is a law of diminishing returns with alternative education, and you have to have a ratio that's a pretty low student-teacher ratio. Once you go above that ratio, you tend to see behaviors spike, you get into truancy and dropout issues. So with more teachers, we could get larger.
Excellent. Leading into my next question. So you've got one science teacher, one social worker, one secondary English teacher. Are any of those teachers also do double gig over at the high school?
No.
They do not?
No.
Is that a possibility to find or see if there are other teachers that would be willing to help out so that you could, in fact, have more? Or are we looking at a logistical issue where you don't have enough space?
A little of both.
Okay.
I think, in theory...
I'm trying to work with you here.
No, I like that. I like the creative thinking. And I also do like the fact that we are, we're a school within a school, but we share the same students, and we have the same goals for the same students. And so that permeability is, in theory, a good thing, I think. Having said that, our kids have specialized needs. They need a small space. They need to feel like it's theirs and that they have some ownership over it. But it's a small space. I think really in that space, 23 is where we're going to kind of cap out.
Okay. I'm really looking forward to the completion of the new middle school, where we might be able to move you over to maybe Field Allen, where you have a lot more space, so that we can really expand on this.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you, in all honesty, these alternative education programs, they save lives, 100%. So, yeah, doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't.
Yeah, all right, I'll settle down. I just wanted to, stay in line with these really succinct people that went before me.
I'm just curious, because you have a science teacher and an English teacher. Can you speak about the other curriculum?
So yes, we have a special educator, we have a science teacher, we have an English teacher. We don't, and in the statute in alternative education, you just have to be certified in something, but you can teach lots of things because you just need to be able to have that flexibility.
Yep.
We don't have a math teacher. That would be the teacher that we would hire when we move to Field Allen. So
one of these people cover that.
Yes, all three of them cover it. We differentiate math. We have 3 levels, and they do a fantastic job. I mean, they're teaching math. I mean, these are super smart, capable people that can do a great job, but we don't have a certified math teacher.
Okay.
But it's a fact, and it would be great when we do. But they do. I would like to state that they're all super competent at the level of math that they're teaching. And we have some students who are doing some pretty high-level math, and some students that are, really struggling with math. But they're getting their needs met with math. But having somebody that has that certification, just like having a licensed school counselor, will only make the program even better.
Terrific. You answered my question. Thank you. Anyway.
So I know in a previous meeting where you spoke, or maybe it was one of the roundtables or whatever, you talked about having a waiting list. What is the waiting list currently sitting at?
Well, that would be a better question for Mr. Rossetti, but I feel like it's close to 15 or 20?
15 to 20, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's a lot of kids. And wow, it kind of makes me a little bit sad that we've got kids in our district that we recognize as adults that need extra assistance and need help to be successful adults, and we can't provide it for them. That makes me sad, frankly. So, going along with Scott's creativity, what could we do between now and when the new middle school comes trundling along in far too distant future to increase the capacity for this program?
I'm not certain that, given our space and transportation constraints, that before this move happens, that we can do much. One thing that we can do is work even more closely with the high school to help so we have restorative practices at our schools, so we don't do detentions. We almost never do suspensions. And the high school is looking at that, and they're looking at restorative practices. We have a lot of expertise with restorative work, and we are collaborating. And so I'm seeing all kinds of really innovative, high-quality work happening at the high school to engage kids, and to just the tone of the high school and the relational capacity that I'm seeing being built at the high school, I think is meeting kids' needs, not to mention the solid academics. So I see, I think there has been more collaboration over the years just by virtue of getting to know each other better and seeing the quality of each other's work back and forth and getting to know the administrative team, which, by the way, at the high school is the best I've ever seen. So I think good movement is happening at the high school to try and support all the learners there. But it's an epic task in our society that we find ourselves in right now to engage all the kids in any one model. So that's why we, multiple pathways, why we talk about in the strategic plan, whole child, multiple pathways. And it seems to me that the strategic plan is really recognizing that more and more kids need to be engaged because kids are so different. And so I think that ball is in motion, and I think that's going to be helpful to engage more kids in creative ways. Not to mention our CTE programming, Paths and WRVC, which is a great resource, which I think could be leveraged even more. Hopefully, I know that there's constraints in their space as well, just like there's constraints at Katahdin. But I do see a lot of creative problem solving going on, and I think the high school is really doing hard, important work to engage as many kids as possible.
I know from my personal experience with the crew at the high school, the administrative crew, I sing their praises frequently. And I agree with you that they're some of the best that I've encountered as a parent.
Right.
But, we started this meeting talking about making sure that kids have enough food to eat. And I think doing what we can from a budgetary space support standing to provide equality in education to as many kids as we can should be our number one job. So I think that we need to talk about how we can get creative to not only support Katahdin, but increase capacity, even if it's by one student. Right. Like Scott said, we could be saving somebody's life. So I'll end on that note. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I think you're done.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have Rich Drummond, who will speak to us about athletics.
Everyone.
Welcome.
I've talked quite a bit this year about all the good things going on, and it seems sometimes that, when school starts, you start right up with fall athletics, then you go right to winter, and there's a lot of good things that go on in athletics in those two seasons, but it always seems like the spring athletes get cut short a little bit when their season ends, school's over. When it starts up, they're kind of forgotten about, but we have, doing initial signups for athletics at the high school, we have almost 300 kids signed up for athletics this spring, which is great. That could change a little bit once we run eligibility and look at some things, and some kids might not come out, but there's a lot of good things going on. I'd just like to reference that the board has always been very supportive, supporting the athletic budget and the budget overall in the community by voting in support of the budget. So it's greatly appreciated because it all plays a pretty big role in what we do in this department. But with my budget in particular, it's up 3.43%. And I'd just like to highlight a few of those items and what it really entails. A lot of that increase is on the HR side. That's negotiated through the stipends for the coaches. But there are two items that couple of accounts that are going to be adjusted with increases. Not a lot, but I would like to reference an account that I have at the high school, purchase services. I've asked for an increase of $2,950 for officials' fees. Every year, officials have to renegotiate their contracts and what they get paid through the Maine Principals Association. So you always have to anticipate a little bit of an increase with that. It's become very apparent that I had to bump up our awards line because we are having a lot of success, I should say. And it's a good thing, it's a good problem to have, but that account might run a little negative this year, but my apologies, Mr. Howell, but we will steal from Peter to pay Paul to even that out. But in any event, so as far as account lines, it's probably about a $4,900 increase. I would like to say on the HR side, I've asked for 2 additional coaches for our outdoor track and field. Outdoor track and field has approximately 19 events. If you've ever seen a track meet, and I mean this in a very sincere way, it's controlled chaos because it is all over the place and it's good stuff for kids, but we have very limited coaches. So we need a couple other sets of eyes, and that's an additional that goes into the HR side of $3,000 for a couple additional coaches. But not a lot of changes. Yes, it's up, but I think it's all in to support kids and what we do. It's a budget that there's not a lot of fluff, but it keeps kids safe. We compete at a high level. I believe our kids, when they go and represent other communities, they look decent, and if they don't, we'll take care of it. But I think it's a budget that really allows us to compete, much like other larger districts in our area. So that's what I have for this year. I can entertain any and all questions, and hopefully I have the answers, and if not, I definitely circle back with you. I know Mr. Karen has the record, but for tonight, we'll see.
I just have a quick question, and again, in the realm of the total budget number, it's very minute, but on page 164, this pool rental, and there's $3,000 for pool rental, but then 167, there's $13,500. Do we rent 2 different pools?
No, that's still for St. Joe's. The $3,000 is for middle school swim.
Okay.
And the $13,000 would be for high school swim.
Okay, good. My other question, and you spoke to it briefly, is about uniforms, and I know you try to rotate through and make sure that we replenish uniforms so we don't look ratty, and we never do. You do a wonderful job with that. Is that sufficient in the budget to maintain?
It's always nice to have more, but I also know that there's also other people and other cost centers that also need items as well. Next year, I've already pre-ordered a few sets of uniforms. I think we're going to be in good shape.
Okay.
If anything, Kate, to be totally honest with you, probably a lot of my attention really should probably try to upgrade the 2 middle school uniforms a little bit and work there and try to see where we're at and what we can do to upgrade that a little bit.
Okay,
Yep.
great. And my final question, and it's just out of curiosity, on page 166. If I can find it, wait a minute. Having had a former basketball player, help me understand why the official for basketball is higher than, say, for football.
They play 18 games, so they play a lot bigger schedule. Hockey and basketball play the most countable games. And then you're going to enter now the way basketball works is a lot of the first initial playoff games are played at home. So those fees, I don't want to say they double, but they increase quite a bit for a home
Okay, that
basketball
makes
game.
sense. Perfect answer. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? Yep.
So, student awards. I've been involved in sporting associations over my life, and awards can get stupid expensive. Are we able to do sponsorships? I'm asking a general question, I don't know. Are local businesses allowed to make donations or sponsor awards?
It's something we've talked about in the past as far as almost like a corporate sponsorship type thing. We don't have a policy that I'm aware of, and it's something that I think if we were going to do and pursue, I think it would have to probably run through policy and then kind of go from there.
Just to have parameters.
I think it would be an awesome project for the JMG students to learn how to do fundraising and working with businesses and corporations to fund some of this type of stuff, just for future reference. What about donations? Like if somebody's got the wooden plaques where you can just pop the brass part off and reuse it. I mean, I hate to give somebody a used award, but in the effort to try to save money.
Yeah. You could, but I think what you'd run into, Shar, a little bit is you'd have a lot of mismatch awards over the years that might not be in sync.
Okay, all right. And then one final question. When I was approving invoices, I think it was a month or two ago, I was surprised to see a payment for, I think it was a physical therapist or athletic trainer or something like that. And I'm like, what the heck do we need that for? It just shows how ignorant I am, but.
Not at all, not at all.
So could you, just for general public, if anybody's paying attention to us talking about budget, bottom of page 166 about purchase services, the athletic trainer. I mean, I get the officials and the referees, that makes sense, but can you talk a little bit about why we need that?
Yep, so that is our athletic trainer, that $36,050 on page 166, and that's a contract through Maine Medical Partners. So we pay Maine Medical Partners, and they kick in the salary over and beyond that to fund our athletic trainer. It is definitely something that it's a lifesaver, and we need, if anything, we probably need an additional personnel to maybe 1.5 or 2 people, just because we're growing, and sometimes when you grow, you spread out a little bit, and there's a lot of area for her to cover. So
What do they do?
So they
Their
do
responsibilities.
Yep, they do all game coverage for athletic events in case there's an injury or anything. They make a direct pipeline for kids with referrals to Maine Medical Partners. So a lot of times if a kid's injured, they can get in really quick. They also help with, anything with dietary, anything over and beyond. So they do a lot of coaches training for us. So it's a very valuable position for us.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the comment that you made last week when we were talking about wrestling and how kids used to basically starve and purge to make their weight class. So this person would be medically professional enough to recognize if anything was going inappropriately with that sort of stuff?
In my opinion, absolutely. And also, this person is tied into our weight management program. So if a kid fluctuates within 3 pounds one way or another, they can get red flagged.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Just also add their rich concussion protocol, which were required under policy and just good practice. Casey helps to manage kids and concussions and working through that along with our school nurses.
You'll find, Shar, schools in our area that are about our same size, a lot of them have 2, maybe 1.5. It's something I actually have a Zoom coming up with MMP to talk about future growth. It's invaluable. So it's a huge, huge addition for us.
Have we thought about reaching out to recent graduates from schools so they have gain real life experience, or like do an internship for somebody that's nearing graduation?
We actually have a number of interns that will be with Casey.
Okay.
If you're out on campus on any fall, spring afternoon, you'll see Casey with a gator hitting multiple practices, checking in with kids, and often she has a physical therapy intern in tow that's working alongside with her.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was kind of wondering how she was covering all the sporting events all at the same time.
It's a really
so.
fast gator.
That's true. Seth's is faster, though.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yep.
So I have a question. You know, your budget is pretty straightforward for the most part, Rich. But continuing on with the medical aspect of it, if I may. So does the athletic trainer get the physicals? Do they see the physicals, or did we just keep those on file?
So they come into us and they go directly to the nurses. So they'll go to Nurse Jolly or Miss White at the middle school, or up to Jordan Small.
All right. Is RSU 14 requiring EKGs for athletic play?
No.
No. Is there any plans of the RSU 14 requiring EKGs?
Not that I'm aware of. I haven't.
Okay.
Haven't.
Like I said, it wasn't a budget question. I just don't see you very often, so I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Are we all set? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
No problem.
Now, we will entertain public comment on anything regarding the budget. And again, the protocol will remain the same, the 3 minutes, and state your name and all the good stuff that goes along with that. So does anyone have any public comment on our budget?
Yes, hi. The question I have is, and this is more about gaining understanding than anything more than likely, but I knew that there were a few parents that had recommended some type of hazard pay for teachers and staff, which they received at a rate of about $600, I believe. And I was wondering if that came through the regular school budget, or that came through some type of
I'm sorry, Ms. Frost, but that's not really pertinent to the items that are listed here.
So where could I bring that up?
It should have been in public comment originally. We're talking about the different cost centers right now.
I thought we were talking about salaries.
No, we're not. We're talking about all the presentations that we just had.
Right.
And so that's what this public comment is for.
Okay. So my understanding was, and I just want to get this straight.
Sure.
My understanding was that that you could not bring up items in public comment that were actually going to be discussed on the agenda. And I feel like where the budgeting went for this, which I'm in favor of, for this stipend, had to do with the regular budget. So therefore, that is why I did not bring it up in open comment, because I figured that this was the place to actually address that. So if that's the case, I don't mind bringing it up in open comment on the next meeting. So
I think that she's accurate. I believe that she's asking the question because we're talking about budget, and there's a lot of salaries in here that we are referring to. So I believe it is pertinent.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't mean to frustrate you.
Yep. Not at all.
Okay.
It still remains 3 minutes.
I'm sorry? It's still what?
It will still remain 3 minutes, as you know.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm trying to have a direction on where to go. I'm actually in favor of this, whatever was given to the staff and teachers. But what I was wondering is where that actually came from our local budget in regards to additional salary for teachers, or or did it come from some type of COVID funding? And if that being said, brings me to the next step is that, and this may have to come up for public comment, I guess, at another time, is that, like I said, my experience with my daughter and the teachers were great, unbelievable. And I believe that the teachers and staff through the state were giving many frontline workers were given hazard pay working through COVID, and it needed to be approved via the district or the Department of Education. And so that's why I was wondering, was the $600 given out of our personal budget, and is there a need to approve additional hazard pay funding for staff and teachers that's been available through millions of dollars to the state, that actually only they can obtain that if they're given permission from whoever their upper person is, and I don't know how that works in the education system. So I'd hate to see our teachers and our staff not have access to the millions of dollars that stay in our state for hazard pay for any of the frontline workers through COVID. And you don't have to answer that now, but that's what I'd like to see.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Howell, do you have a question? Okay. Okay, thank you very, okay.
Any other public comment?
Hi, everybody. I'm Steve Napolitano. First, I want to actually thank Rich Drummond and his team for doing such an incredible job for all our athletes in so many levels, so many ages. I've been up in the fields for almost 10 years coaching the young kids, and their work. They don't always see the results that's going on with the children because they're doing so much for the kids. So I want to thank Rich and his team for that. How do we get, and I might have missed this and I apologize, how do I get a copy of the proposed budget? Is it online?
Mm-hmm.
It is online? So, all right, I'll get that. Is there a column that will show last year's expenditures, or is that something I have to request for?
In the annual achievement report, it has the trend of the 4 years.
Okay.
That's online as well.
All right, so that's all. Awesome. That's all I need. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, we're going to move. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Kristen Day. So I have a question about the athletic department. I was wondering about the trainer, because she's amazing, and I was wondering if the middle school students are allowed to use the trainer. And the reason why I ask is because they're like big kids and they're doing sports and they're injuring themselves. My daughter just injured her knee this past week, and I said, well, did you go to see Casey? And then my older kids were like, well, that's for the high school. And then I thought, oh, well, she's as big as me. Maybe she could use that too. So we ended up taking her to OA. But I was thinking, I don't know how the budget works, but it just seems like the kids could, because my son, when he hurt himself in track, he wasn't allowed to check in until he went back over to Casey and got himself checked and showed him exactly what to do, and it was excellent. So I don't know if that's something that has ever been mentioned, but it just seems like it would be a good thing, as long as the middle school's on the same campus anyway, especially. I don't even know who I'm supposed to ask.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Right now, Kristen, Casey does some limited middle school follow-up with athletes, but that's a big part of the meeting that we're going to discuss, hopefully in the near future, with MMP about extended services, including the middle school.
Oh, I like that. Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Okay. I'm hesitating so I don't cut anyone off from coming up, but I'm going to close public comment. We're going to move into the presentation of the 2022-2023 district school calendar. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Do I get to beat the boys tonight?
No rush.
See, they set me up every time when they do this. I know, seriously.
I know when they have to come back to work.
No, they're just going to be like, when do we start school? Thank you for having me. I know this is a long evening for you. I am here, and I was joking with Scott earlier, this is my 10th calendar presentation to the board. And 10 years ago, this law went into place of why we align our calendars with other school districts. And so I know we have new board members and community listening, so I want to just make sure, and included in your packet tonight is the guidance from Chapter 686 of why we align our school calendars with other districts. RSU 14 is in a cohort with paths. So we are required, I'm sorry, Westbrook, thank you, Marge. We are required to align our calendars for our students that go to the Westbrook vocational schools so that they do not have more than 5 dissimilar days. So before this started, everybody set their own calendar. School started. Kids weren't available because their school hadn't started. They had a day off. And so under this chapter, we need to align our days, which a lot of hard work went into the beginning of this piece. And so for the public to also understand, we align our calendar with Westbrook, obviously, Bonnie Eagle, Scarborough, and Gorham. So we get together in early January and we draft out. One of the pieces that we do have to consider is the number of student days each of us have in our contracts and how many staff days. So that is very different for every district. And so we do the best to align our students. So the calendar I have presented before you, there is nothing major from last year. I am very sad to report, as I chatted with Scott earlier, that the way the calendar falls, we will be starting before Labor Day. This is my first question every year. RSU 14 likes to have their days, and Pete and Scott always request that I bring that forward, which I did. And no, I'm sorry, it didn't happen. Our start time is very similar to last year. The one thing on the calendar you will notice, we have put more description for the start of pre-K and K. So this year, Wyndham Primary School, when they started kindergarten, had half the students come one day, and then the other half of the students came the next day. And their transition was really well received by parents. Kindergarten parents also come to school. They have 20-minute appointments, the same with pre-K, to come into the classroom with just their child, to see the environment, to meet the teacher. And so a nice, slow entry into school has paid huge dividends. And so we wanted to reflect on the calendar. And I want public to know, if you are registering a pre-Ker, the lottery is open. If you are registering a kindergartner, the school will work with you after screening, and you'll know which day you're coming for your first day. And then we will have a day where everybody comes together for the rest of the year. So that is one change of the wording on the calendar that I just wanted to point out to all of you. I also have the description of each month, so you can see the breakdown of student days and staff days, and if there's a special day, what that means. You will also see the listing of the early release days for our middle school and high school, and some calendar notes. The pre-K and K description is there on the bottom that Mrs. Peavy and Dr. Rhodes will be sending out and sharing with parents. We will again be closed, Jordan Small Middle School and Wyndham High School, on Election Day, as we have in the past for school safety and security. This is amazing to think about, but Wyndham High School graduation is June 11th next year. Al, I think that's your ding-ding day. I have a senior this year, so when our calendar came out last year, that just gets ingrained in your brain, so you get a sneak peek, Al. Then our last day of school before additional snow days, we'd be starting with Monday, June 12th. So on our calendar, we list our holidays, we list our early release days, we list our workshop days. We have the same number of workshop days. We have very grateful to have 2 more in-service days to open the year with staff. Staff feedback on there from this year was really exciting. We still have our traditional opening day with all our festivities. We did do it this year out on the field. It was a great morning. It was so great to see everybody and have everybody in one space. And so bringing back some of the traditions to bring our staff together is always fun. We also put on here the quarter dates, end dates, and the trimester dates for the calendar. We do have in our contracts in our school, we have 175 student days. and 182 staff days. So no changes in those pieces. And our calendar looks very similar. I will, because everybody always asks, you get an extra day at winter break. We will be releasing, and our last day of school in December will be a Wednesday to give families time. We did not extend another day because of the way the calendar shifted. And when we come back, Monday is New Year's Day observed, so there will be no school. We'll start on a Tuesday. The other caution is February is again late. February break is again late. This has been the third year that it has shifted. So that's something I always point out to parents when they're trying to make plans. Same thing with April break. They have traditionally been a little bit earlier, and the way the calendar falls, we're later in those holidays. So I'm happy to answer any questions, take any feedback on the calendar.
Kate has a question. We're going to let her go.
Well, this is just, the Raymond release for an early, it says 12:30. Is that changing for next year?
No, it's the time it's always been on there.
All right. I picked my kid up at 12:10, so I don't know.
Oh. This is the same we had last year, so
Oh, okay.
I can go back and check,
Okay.
Kate, though. I'll definitely do
Thank
that,
you.
so.
There's teachers there releasing her. I don't just grab her. I swear. I swear.
Kate, I will check, because I popped that in from,
And it could be because I'm car pickup, so it could be that, but.
okay, but I will double check for you on that. Thank you.
Perfect. Sure.
So I know at a prior board meeting, a member of the public asked if regular school board meetings could be put on the schedule, and I know that it gets tight, especially at the, in some of the months, but I just thought I'd pass along that request from the public.
Sure, can I just address that? Because
Yes.
the calendar that she was referring to, the Wyndham Eagle does a calendar that's a free calendar for the community. That school board dates were on there.
Oh, okay.
And it's a paid thing that the district has to pay. This year, we weren't approached to see whether or not we wanted to have our dates on there. So we'll take a look at that community calendar that has all town meetings on it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, so new to school stuff, right? So I'm going to ask a question because I don't know. You said at the beginning, staff and student days by contract, depending on which school system. Can you?
Correct. So my children go to a different district, and they have 178 student days. So each district, you have to have a minimum of 175 student days in the state of Maine. Some districts have more, or some have to meet the minimum. So when we go to do a calendar, for example, Gorham students have 178 or 179, I believe. So they're trying to fit in with us start days. So we work with when we all need to start about the same time.
Yeah.
Or it throws us off, meaning that those students, if we started later, our students wouldn't be able to access vote because they wouldn't be in session. So we have to kind of play those games. So for example, in October, Gorham has 2 teacher in-service days. So one is we all do one the same time. Like this Friday, we all do this Friday. If one of those districts does not do an in-service day, it's considered a dissimilar day. So we are lucky that on this Friday, Westbrook also has an in-service day. So it doesn't matter because it's not a school day for them. So the other piece, Shar, for you to know is early releases are traditionally on a Wednesday. That was the other thing they said is if you could everybody have an early release only on Wednesdays, then our teachers can plan to know at any time. We also offer a bus for students to go and continue their VOC. So.
Okay.
But when we first started this, I think Marge, Kate probably remember, we used to have, students didn't come to school the whole week of Thanksgiving. And that was the first Band-Aid we had to mitigate that. We had to have come to school Monday, Tuesday, because there was just no way we were going to match in the 5 days, so.
Okay. So that kind of answers my next question. But so this will end up being more of a statement, but I understand why, I guess I better understand why now. It seems really wasteful that the last day of school is on a Monday because it's, I mean, from my perspective as a parent, it's a wasted day.
But we have to add snow days, so we keep
Right,
going.
but in the event there's no snow days or anything, it's kind of a wasted day because the kids go to school and they hang out and they do field activities or what, and they have fun.
Right.
But I don't know, just
It's not an
I
instructional
understand.
day.
Yes, I understand better now why it's like that, though. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Scott.
Hi, Christine. So, I want to go back to dissimilar days real quick. You had just mentioned that Gorham has got more student days than Wyndham.
Yes.
Do those count towards dissimilar days?
They do. How it works is Voc decides what day they're ending. And so if Gorham will go longer than us, that doesn't count as a dissimilar day. So that's the only way we can do this, is because once Voc is done, it doesn't matter who's in school and who is not, because those days don't count as dissimilar.
Okay.
So that's one of the big pieces that we try to do. The start of it is key, the start of the school year, because Scarborough does another day that is dissimilar. Gorham has 2 other in-service days they have in the school year that no one else has. And so it becomes, we're at 4 right now. So,
okay.
And everyone's trying to get their calendars adopted. So what if a district comes back and says our board voted this down and they need this day off, it could move us to 5, or we have to ask for a waiver. So
Okay. So a lot of it really kind of hinges on when Voc's last day is?
to start, yes. Well, when Voc starts and then when Voc finishes. And so Westbrook sometimes doesn't know that because of snow days, because if they're closed, they have to cover a day. So we have to keep going along the line there for the end of the year.
So does that factor into when we decide to call off school because of snow?
No.
What is the impact when we call off school, but Gorham does not? Is that a dissimilar day?
No, it's just when you set your calendars.
It's just when you set the
When you just set the calendar. Yeah, sorry, Chris. Because
Okay.
because we have to send these and they set, because you can't guarantee that all 5 districts, because Westbrook could be open and the rest of us could be closed due to snow.
Okay.
And that doesn't count against us.
All right. So then my next question is, when you guys all get together, and it's the first meeting of the year, and you guys are going to talk about this calendar, and you walk into the meeting and you go, Scott and Pete are not going to be happy, folks. We need to start school after Labor Day.
Yep.
Do you even say that?
Yes, I do. I do. I don't say your names, but I say my first request is I've had board members ask if we could start after Labor Day.
What do they say to you?
It's not pretty,
Oh,
but I try, Scott. I ask every year,
all right.
and
I might start going to those board meetings too then.
that is one of the first things I ask, because it is something that you and Pete have always requested, and I want to see if there's a possibility to do it, and so far, no.
For me, and I know that Pete has said this before, and I'm going to go ahead and say it again, I would rather see the 3 days tacked on at the end. August is still a fantastic time of year. It is still before Labor Day. There's still vacation. People are still in vacation mode. And honestly, people are not moving into vacation mode towards the end until maybe the end of June, July. That's when people really start, hitting the RV or going camping or something like that. So, yeah, I'm going to vote no again.
Okay. I know.
Thank you, Christine.
I'm trying though, Scott. I do pitch it every year because I know.
I'm not
it's
even
important.
joking. I'm going to start going to those other board meetings.
Thank you. I know this is a lot of work. I remember in the beginning, trying to come down to, Pat's, by the way, never makes 5 days because they have so many sending schools. So every year they have to go for a waiver. They don't have a choice because they can't, no matter how they try, they're never going to get it together. And, how many meetings did you have? There was a multitude. In fact, I think the first year we year or two, we had to ask for a waiver because we couldn't. So, all of these towns have gone through a lot of work. So thank you very much. I know it's not starting before Labor Day. After Labor Day, but getting in 5 days, it's just, Scott wants them moved a little.
I know.
But
Anybody else?
thank you.
This will be on the agenda for a vote where you can cast your nay, probably next week.
I thank you for that, for Westbrook, because at my last meeting, they did ask everybody who has not submitted their approved calendar, could they please get on the ball, and we told them it's coming.
I told Todd that I was presenting, and then your vote would be next week, and then we would get that to them.
So they tried to, just so you're aware, how do we know what's, Westbrook usually is one of the first ones to vote on the calendar, so we know what their schedule is.
Yeah. So, and if any other board members who are not here tonight, because I know there are new people, okay, any of them, they can reach out if they have clarifying questions. It is a little convoluted. It is it is a little weird when you have to think about it. Yeah. So I certainly don't mind if they reach out. So
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back for middle school construction.
To set up the PowerPoint. I didn't get a chance to because we came right in. No, I just need to get hooked up.
I don't know, but we're still on camera. Okay.
There we go. No, feel free to.
Okay, we're back.
Oh, you know what? We could turn this one
Just
on.
needed a bit of time to set up for the presentation that Mr. Howell will do on middle school construction.
All right. We lost signal for a second when I turned that TV on. That's bizarre. Yeah, I don't know why that isn't on.
Brad, we might need some help here.
Did something get disconnected?
Bear with us, folks. We're trying to
This
get
one's
a.
not two different controls, that's why. That one is a computer monitor, so that's the Dell. Yep. This one is the same one as the other three. This should be on. Yeah, that should be on. Did someone disconnect it? This is not attached to anything.
Just a few technical difficulties here. Bear with us.
You're singing what's that? You were song and dance band? No.
No.
You're behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Here, right?
Yep, behind the scenes. Yes.
It's so weird to see the delayed reaction. I do something, but it's not in sync with the. Yeah.
I used to notice that.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah. Thank you. This farewell tour. Yeah. This last tour.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll just give it a minute.
Just gonna give it a minute to try to make things connect here.
No, we might have to have board members look up at the screen behind you. Sorry. I think we'll get it fixed.
Is he trying to work his magic back there?
It's on right functions. But you should see it here, it should be on there. Partially on the wall, Brad, does that connect? Is that the one? If it works, anything happen? Unfortunately, you can't really do anything with this until you actually get to it.
Thank you, Brad.
Did that? Yes. The screen go fine? It's fine.
Yep.
They look like they match.
Okay. Mr. Howe, middle school construction.
Perfect. So thought it'd be a good opportunity to update the public and update the board. The middle school construction committee has been busy and has been working through some things, and thought this would be a good opportune moment to get everybody up to speed of where we're at. We are on schedule for our target date of an August 2026 move-in. So things are continuing to progress. And then as you also see in here, we are on target also for hitting our June 23 referendum date for the project. Just remind everybody, and no, you can't read anything in there because even on the original slide, they're not legible. But we are in the 21-step process, and we are over by step 6, and if you're reading from left to right, and we are getting close to a milestone, which is determining what site, what location, where is this building eventually going to end up. And there's been some work from the committee, and the whole purpose of this presentation is to give an update on where we are with site selection, and just to let people know just some of the processes that the group's been through. So if you go to the far left-hand side today, we're in the pre-referendum phase, and that phase includes visioning work, some initial site work, trying to determine what are possible locations, and also it requires a tremendous amount of visioning work and working with staff. And as I mentioned in the last meeting, Frank Locker will be back with both middle schools and with Manchester 5th grade on Friday, continuing to work on visioning work, facilities, trying to determine what's going to be in this new building. In addition, our architectural firm will be joining with them as well and be taking feedback. And they've been doing some small group work. They've been doing some surveys and collecting data. Following that, June of 23, which is next year, where we'd go to referendum, assuming a successful referendum on a mainly funded state project, which is a lot easier than just a locally funded project. We would go into a design phase and then going out to bid April 2024, and then a 24-month to 36-month construction period. The reason why the length of construction there, if we were doing a renovation addition, those are a whole lot longer to do because you're constantly moving kids around as you are constructing on the building. Brand new construction, off-site, brand new campus is a whole lot quicker, a whole lot easier to do, and is also a time saving. So this is just a snapshot of what's going to be happening between now and June. So we've got the site selection, educational planning, programming, population projections. We're still waiting on our population projections. We have worked with a firm that does that, and they're looking at, again, we don't want to build a building that 5 years down the road we've outgrown already. So continuing to do that. The other thing that's happening right now, which people may or may not be aware of, is that the state was willing to pay for a complete facility study for the entire district. And within that facility study is to make sure that as we're looking at moving grade levels around, that when we're done and we have a final product, if we want to do universal pre-K, we actually can fit universal pre-K in. And so they've been working with all the building principals and also been meeting with all the directors, looking at our facilities and coming up with a long-term game plan, and even some opportunity for some growth in some of our different buildings. So site selection, I know this is an area which everyone has the greatest interest. You're going to spend all this money, where's this thing going to go? And so what this group has done to date and the committee has done to date is they've looked at all 35 plus acre parcels and properties that are available in Windham and Raymond. They've looked at the existing site. They've gone out and advertised for offers. So out in the community, who has land available? Are you interested in working with RSU 14? They've done work looking in Raymond and Windham. There's been a theme that families and students all want to be close to their schools. So no matter where you site your building, everybody wants to be close to it. And then they've also looked at multiple attributes, considered weighted and placed into a matrix. And I think it's important for the community to know that the matrix process, and we're going to start getting into it here, the matrix process is meant to every single building site that you look at, or every single building site opportunity, what are the pluses, what are the minuses, and every site is graded. Much of the work that was done for the site matrix was done by our environmental engineering firm, our civil engineer, Stantec, who helped us work through some of the different logistics and other difficulties with sites. They also did a lot of the field work, driving around both towns, looking for open spaces and looking to see what might possibly be available. So every single property that we looked at throughout this entire process was looked at for developable acres, adequate size to develop parking and fields. So it might be a 50-acre property, but only 5 acres is developable, or it's on the side of a hill, or in one case, it literally was a mountain. Or in another case, it's not licensed for schools, but it's licensed for marijuana grows. You look at all sites, you look at all attributes. Is it a possibility? Traffic is a concern. Anyone who drives on this campus in the morning knows that traffic is a concern. If you've been in Manchester on any given day at dismissal, it's a concern. Even Raymond Elementary, when parent pickup happens and the numbers and the cards come up. Transportation, so impact of busing. Depending upon where the school goes, we're building a middle school, and typically your middle school, high school run on a similar schedule. So what's the impact on buses if they're farther apart from each other? Distance to other schools, shared resources, potential environmental issues. Is there any hazardous waste or contamination that might be there? And then everything from outdoor learning to density, looking at population density. Infrastructure for emergency response. Can you have 2 exits? Some of the properties we looked at, there's one way in, one way out. And any sort of probability for neighborhood school. We looked at zoning. We looked at access, so that's single or redundant. We looked at wetlands, vernal pools. I didn't know until this process you have to have a 250-foot buffer on all sides of a vernal pool. That's a 500-foot diameter circle that you have to eliminate out of a piece of property if there's a vernal pool that's present. Any critical habitat. So if there's, I forget what type of shrimp, but if there's any critical habitat that's there, different distance infrastructure. So what does water look like? Do we have access to public water? State would love to have us have public water in our facility. And especially if anyone has been watching the news now, that any sort of wells now have to be, actually starting this spring, have to be tested for PFAS. That was nothing we ever had to do. It's a concern, but that's now for the Raymond schools because they're on wells. We now have to test for PFAS in the water. With the schools on the Windham side, which are on public water, it takes away that. Possible sewer. The state loves sewer. any possibility you can do there because you're not wasting space for leach fields. So is that a possibility? Looking at even if you couldn't do sewer or septic possible, and then some other infrastructure pieces, three-phase power, which is great for your mechanicals, for your elevators, infrastructure, and then distance to other infrastructure, gas and oil, other pipelines available. This campus here, Manchester has natural gas, Raymond doesn't. So we have combined oil and propane up there, looking at multiple possibilities. So I'm going to skip through these. All of these different things for all the different sites were looked at, and the areas that are shown in pink, in the highlighted pink, the areas shown in highlighted blue, and the ones shown in highlighted yellow were all graded on the matrix, looking at all those different possible attributes that were there. And the committee quickly realized this, is that if this is going to be a combined Windham and Raymond school, it does not make sense to have any sort of property we're looking at beyond the current high school campus. So quickly, if you notice the dotted line that's there and the pink that's down, those sites were eliminated. And so what was really looked at then is that what is that corridor that was between Patricia Avenue and the current Windham High School campus. That was the area that made the most sense to take a look at. And so sites that were down below were eliminated. There were some nice sites down there. Most of them aren't for sale. And I also learned through this process that SD Warren actually holds a number of large sites as well as part of their inventory of land. So within focus areas, some sites quickly started to emerge that we took a look at, and those are the ones in yellow. The big yellow piece up there, that is Bedrock. I'm going to start at the very, very top. That is Bedrock Terrace. That was taken a look at and really scrutinized. The one that's below it is a parcel for sale, which is next to Seacoast Fun Park. That's a mountain. You would have to move mountains to do that. The existing Manchester site as a possibility, there's 20 some odd acres that's there. We looked at a piece of property over towards Falmouth Road. It wasn't available, but we took a look at it. We have 691 Wyndham Center Road. And then also, which is down, it's the horse farm down at the roundabout, and then the current campus. And so taking a look at these 9 sites, in addition to looking at the 9 sites, we looked at where's the population density for Windham and Raymond. And if you look at the map, and board members, if you want to look at this afterwards, all of these slides are in your packet. This presentation was added. We'll also make sure that it gets put up on the website. But your greatest population concentration in that corridor is actually the area around Manchester School, with 1,530 residential buildings within that circle. As you come a little bit farther south, it goes to 930. And then when you get beyond the high school, it actually starts to drop off. If you go up into Raymond, as you cross over the border, it drops off to 550. So your greatest population is around Manchester School. However, Manchester School is not a viable option. Number one, the traffic there is difficult. There's not a lot of space that's available there. And that piece of property is also being looked at as a portion of the North Windham Sewer Project, and could provide some critical infrastructure to that project. And so that's just kind of it. When we got down to these 9 sites, they received scores. And if you notice, the number 1 or the top score was the current campus at 406 Gray Road. Reason why it scored so high is that number 1, it has all the critical infrastructure pieces. It meets a lot of boxes, ticks a lot of boxes. It's a good place to have a school. But guess what? We already have 3 schools there. But it proved to be a good site. Another good site that scored well in the matrix was 61 Wyndham Center Road, which is down the street, and the board currently holds an option on purchasing that piece of property. Manchester School site scored lower. Patricia Ave and Raymond, a little bit lower than that. And then we have the Raymond Elementary School, which we did look at. as the acreage that's there. Anyone familiar with beyond the playground at Raymond Elementary School, it drops off pretty quick into the woods. Bedrock Terrace wasn't going to happen, it's not zoned, and I did not feel comfortable bringing forward to the board, nor did the construction committee, a school that was built next to a marijuana dispensary and a grow site. Just is not a good combination. Whitesbridge Road is a mountain. Webb's Mill Road is a piece of property that runs, it's actually, if you take the turn onto 85 and head to the pole lines, there is a piece of property, but basically it goes this way and then this way, and it didn't lend itself to some great development. And then 812 Gray Road is a piece of property that we're just starting to take a look at. It's a piece of property that in conversations with the owner, they're interested in conversations. There's been nothing committed. 812 Gray Road is if you head out Route 202, almost to the gray line where 202 hits 115. There's a 95 acre plot that's there that a portion may be a possibility if other opportunities and things don't work out. So when the committee looked at the current campus, this is what the campus would look like if you put a middle school right across from Field Allen. And that's where the current Field Allen baseball field is. And there's the three-quarter soccer field and the varsity baseball field. What this does is if you put a school there and you put a community center on this campus and you keep all the existing traffic, it is almost impossible to route traffic in any sort of way that's going to make sense on campus. So it really starts to create some difficulties. The other couple of reasons why campus was kind of started to be ruled out is in the state construction project or process. If the state in helping us build a building, we disturb fields, they will build those fields elsewhere. But that's it. They won't develop a new campus. They won't help you with that process. And so in essence, we lose athletic fields by having it on campus. We do gain a few on an alternate site. But in essence, what you have is that you have kids that leave school and then have to be bused to a different location to go to practice, whereas it's much more favorable to have kids leave their school and go directly to practice, and then parents aren't worrying about transporting and moving all that. This will be a large building at 104,000 square feet. That's 2.5 acres of floor space going up multiple levels. It just didn't work on the campus. And so the committee on their January 20th meeting voted to get rid of the existing site and traffic, large population on campus, and then we would lose fields and you'd have problems with field access. In addition, the committee ruled out Manchester School, Raymond Elementary School, Bedrock Terrace, Whitesbridge, and Webb's Mill Road, but kept on there for additional consideration and also for some site diagramming, 61 Wyndham Center, Patricia, and 812 Gray Road. So moving on, the committee, Stan Tech, who is the civil engineer working on this project, looked at some site walks, looked at some test fits, so some conceptual school layouts. What would it look like if a school was put on some of these different sites? And then also looking at confirmed availability. So 61 Wyndham Center, we've known is available project since this fall. Patricia Ave, we've known has been available. 812, we've just found out recently that's even a possibility. So most of the work that's been done to date has been done on 61 Wyndham Center and on Patricia Ave. 61 Wyndham Center, and this is what it would look like with a school on it. The front, if you notice in the front, I'm going to actually take everybody, there's the roundabout, and then there's Wyndham Center Road. And that's with the existing, there's a horse barn that's there, and there used to be a soccer field there, Mackenzie Field. In this particular layout, you would have an entrance where the current driveway is. You would rebuild a soccer field out front. The driveway would come out back. The center blue section is what's called a wetland of special significance. We can continue with crossing it. We can't build on it. But as you go to the back piece of the property, everything back there is developable. The baseball field there is shown on a wet spot, that blue area that still is a developable area. And on this particular property, you end up with 27, 28 acres of developable space. There's 45 acres total. In addition, the town of Windham has 9 acres on the upper right-hand side. And by using the current egress on that, this site gets it gets a spot where parents can come in and go out. It also gives a separate bus access so that they can then leave and you don't have buses and parents intermingling with each other. So that's a concept plan taking a look at. Some of this concept plan needs to be tweaked a little bit because it's a hodgepodge of looking at this as possible athletic fields and in addition looking at it and adding the building. The state has requested us to look at on any of our site diagrams to do an H building, and an H different than a block because in an H you get more available sunlight because you have more windows. The last thing they want to have is a monolith. They've asked us to look at, and I think actually in listening to the teachers and listening to comments, everybody, and even I think we saw it, Scott, I think you might be the only one who went to Oyster River. Some of those classrooms of the natural light that was displayed, everyone's in agreement. How much natural light can we get in and pull being beneficial? This is 812 Gray Road, and the piece of property that we want to take a look a little bit more. It's kind of split into 2 pieces in that. On the lower portion, there's some fields and a wooded section. On the upper section, there is a gravel pit that is not currently in use. It's used privately by the landowner. The fields at the bottom are hay fields, and they're pretty much just flat fields. Challenges with the site, there's only one way in and one way out on 202. Another challenge is it's getting farther and farther away from the corridor and getting farther and farther away from existing schools. But it's a site we're going to take a look at and just see if it's a possible option. This is Patricia Ave, and this is what a test fit looked like on Patricia Ave. Some things that really started to emerge on Patricia Ave that was helpful as the civil engineers looked at it. For those of you who've driven up to the site, and if anybody wants to go up to the site, more than happy to do a visit with them. Patricia Ave is a winding road. It also has some huge elevation changes that take place on that road. And it's not a suitable road to bring in a school or bring in traffic for school unless the entire road was rebuilt coming up through. And so looking at an access road, it would actually have to go over towards Webb's Mills Road. There were 2 possible spots that were looked at. One would be bringing it out onto Webb's Mills without crossing over the power lines and the gas line. If that was the case, it would take 2,400 feet of road to get to the property. To get to where the school would be 3,600 feet to build that driveway. One of the shorter distances would require us to go through natural gas and also through the power line corridor that's there. One of the problems with the route is that the grades are such that you would not be able to have sidewalks going on that road to the school because the grades go as great as 9%. And if you did do a sidewalk in many places, you would either be doing switchbacks or other ways in order to do that. In addition, there goes over 3 pieces of property that the district doesn't own, Raymond doesn't own, and would require to have permission to do that. The limitations with Patricia, and this became really apparent when we went up and did the sidewalk. There are 2 circles that you see on Patricia with a dark spot in the middle. Those are vernal pools. And when you have a vernal pool, you have a 250-foot buffer that you can't build within, that you can't disrupt. And what it does is that this piece of property, you now start to get constrained to the very, very back corner where the front fields are. In essence, I know the town of Raymond, and again, the town of Raymond was super generous to offer this up, had offered up 40 acres, and really they said, pick whatever 40 acres. In order to develop the site, you would actually need to look at all 100 acres. the two vernal pools start to create some problems with access, because then they start to limit where you can go off into the different V's, and it kind of pushes back. There's a lot of tough topography on the site where it really got some big drop-offs. On the front side, you have the former Raymond landfill, and there's a significant hill there, which is a capped mound, and then you have a former septic site, which is on the front, which we'd have to go through some environmental testing. So there became a lot of limitations. The biggest limitations here, though, have been the two vernal pools, because in essence, those breeding areas have really constricted down where you can actually site anything there, and in essence has constricted any sort of development. The other thing which has made this very difficult is getting to it, the grades getting to it, and then overcoming those grades to make the school handicap accessible coming up the driveway and having that community feel with kids being able to access. And so at the last meeting, which was I think last Thursday night, the building committee said that they wanted to remove Patricia Ave and made that recommendation. Couple concerns came up, is that the proximity to the landfill and just what are the future liabilities that might come along with that, the access to the property, the two bottom ones, the wetland impact, vernal pools, it eliminated so much of that property to actually even access. And I think even on when Sebago Technics had done some initial work back there, they had identified one of them, but they hadn't gone back and done the other one. So some pieces with that. So it leaves us at this point with 61 Wyndham Center Road as a potential site and 812 Gray Road as a potential site. And so those actually scored pretty well within the matrix. And next steps for those, I'm actually just going to go through because we've already shown those. The Maine Department of Education was informed of the vote last Thursday night, a vote on Friday. They confirmed today that they've approved going forward with environmental testing on those two remaining sites. And there's two studies that are going to be happening. And so first one, environmental assessment. This is going through, are there any hazardous materials? And let's see here, the presence or likely presence of any hazardous substances or petroleum products in or at the property due to release to the environment under conditions indicative of a release to the environment under conditions that pose a material threat or future release to the environment. Is there stuff there that is going to create environmental issues? So that's step number one, and the cost for that is $13,000 for the two sites. Stantec will be doing that. In addition, the wetland vernal pool study, why it was so important for the committee to act on this now is that the vernal pool study can only be done, there's April 1st to May 1. If you don't make that window, then you have to wait another year before you can get any sort of approval on that site. And so the state did approve that yesterday. Those will be moving forward. We'll be reaching out to landowners and starting some of this work and looking for some of those sites. So that's where we're at the moment. No definitive decision has been made. We'll look at those and we'll see where we're at. I'm trying to remember the exact total of sites that Dwight Anderson, who is the civil engineer, actually either walked or studied, but every possible nook and cranny that was available was taken a look at.
Any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you for that update.
Okay, can I just say one thing? Something I forgot. You as a board will have the opportunity, you make the final decision on this process. While there is a construction committee, that construction committee serves to inform all of you. And so you will make the final decision. In addition, as we get into the fall, there'll be an opportunity for the public to weigh in. There'll be a straw poll on the possible site options, and there'll be a final piece. But ultimately, you as the legislative body get to make that decision and make that final recommendation. So I didn't want to leave that out in the process.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Very informative. We're going to move on to policies. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the second revised reading of policy IJJ, instructional and library materials selection.
Second.
Thank you. Public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes of the March 9th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Public comment or discussion? All those in favor? Okay, very good. Committee reports, finance, Pete's not here. We've done, I don't know, do you have anything else? Facilities?
No, we're going to be rescheduling the facilities meeting, so
Okay.
I'm assuming we'll touch base at some point tomorrow about that. And then you all just got a update, a very thorough update.
Very
So I'd like
thorough.
to thank Chris for
Right,
helping with that.
right. Do you have a question?
No, we scheduled a finance meeting for next week,
Okay, perfect.
today.
Thank you. Policies meeting tomorrow. Curriculum
Have not met.
have not met. I'm gonna get to you. Adult ed?
There
No.
hasn't been anything recent.
Voc?
We had a, we had a meeting, and I do have notes, but with everything I grabbed, that was not one of them. So as soon as I get the minutes, as Chris knows, because I had them out of my grouping, because I read it to him over the phone, but, because he missed the meeting. So I will send the minutes out, which will be more in depth than what I was going to tell you, but there's really nothing outstanding.
Perfect.
The only I'll just add about VOC, which, Shar, this goes to your current thing. I think a disappointment that as we look at budgets, the number of kids now who are interested in vocational programming, but yet the number of slots, we don't seem to have all that we possibly can. So, and I know that's a discussion that's happening, but it's great because of so much time we wanted to get more and more kids taking advantage of the opportunity, and then some of the slots and numbers.
Yeah, and you know, and it's really too bad too, because part of the meeting that we did have was the fact that both schools are finding ways to involve more students in different things, but not necessarily have larger programs. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like they want to spread it out all the way down in Westbrook, down to I think the 8th grade or something. And, you know, bring in new programs. And the school is only, both of them are only so big, so they can only fit so much in there. And now they're going to bring welding. They kind of put on the back burner before because it lost interest. And now they're doubling the size of everybody who's, for some reason, it sparked an interest there, so there's a lot more people applying for it.
Unintended. Very good. Yeah, I know. Good job.
That was good.
So Chris is right. You know, I don't know. It's really tough. We know because it's been a long time. Everybody's been trying to spark the interest of students to go to vote, and now that we've sparked the interest, not having the slots is very, very difficult. And Chris can go through because I can't remember off the top of my head how that formula works. There is a formula to how many slots you have as a district. And Chris,
I mean, it's based on the 5 sending schools, and you get a percentage based on the overall population of the 5 sending for their high schools. And so we're roughly, each one of us have a school of about 1,000. You roughly get a fifth of the slots. So it's just, it's for so many years where we had slots that we weren't using, and now we've got kids that want and then not. We got just something I know, and I know Westbrook's interested in talking about this, and it might take some state intervention with some money to do a renovation on Westbrook.
Oh, and the other thing is, before I forget, because you probably all saw in the news that in Portland, they were trying to consolidate. They had gone to try to get some state money to be able to build a new state-of-the-art. It would have been a combination high school, technical school, and, you know, that would have been a chance for them to be able to enhance and enlarge their programs, but they were really Javier was at the last meeting, so they said they missed the boat on applying, and they tried to put in again, and I guess it's a fund, not necessarily the one we're going through, but another fund that's put aside that really hasn't been used. So there's been a lot of work there. As of right now, though, there has been a really negative response from Augusta on that.
Thanks for
Time
that
will
update.
tell.
All right. You certainly can.
Voc? So what would the process be then if we have a limited number of slots and we say we have a student that, is interested in participating? So what would the process be? And are we eventually going to be looking at potentially a wait list for Voc?
In some cases, there is a wait list, and in some cases, because Westbrook's our primary site. So if there's a program at Westbrook, kids go to Westbrook. Occasionally, though, if Portland has the same program, that they've allowed kids to then come over and then access a program there. But in essence, you end up with a wait list for kids that are trying to get in. And what they also try to do is when kids come over and do their visits, they try to have them visit 2, if not 3 programs, just in case one of their programs fills up, and then they have the opportunity to look at what's another possible program that you might be interested in attending. But in essence, we could definitely use some more slots.
See, what's really enticing, I think, some of these kids is that there is the potential to earn SMCC course credits with some of these courses. And so that's definitely kind of an eye-opener, I think, for a lot of these kids. So,
and I think I'll also add, I think it's still in the governor's budget, but I think for this graduating class and the next one, I think SMCC could possibly be free.
Wow.
All technicals.
Yeah.
Really? Cool.
Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah, as where some of the federal dollars will be going to covering tuition. So it could be a great opportunity for many, many kids to come out with a certificate or an associate's degree with no debt.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's important that kids really know what courses are available at both schools, because if there is a course that PATHS have that might be similar to Westbrook's full, they can go to PATHS. And if there is one that they don't have, that they can go, PATHS can be their first choice if it's a program that is not offered at Westbrook.
Gotcha.
So they don't have to pick one from Westbrook. They do have that option. But again, there's always the limitations on class sizes and space.
Thank you. You're up.
All right. One thing I forgot to mention earlier, which I thought was really cool, is some of the students from Wyndham High School, specifically Student Council, is organizing a prom dress and suit drive. So they especially with prom being the first prom we've had in like 2 years, the students recognize that prom dresses and suits cost a lot of money, and some people can't afford that. So we are organizing a drive during the school day where students can go and try on suits and dresses and get them absolutely free. And we've talked to some community members through Facebook, and there's a lot of support. So I think it's going to be a fairly successful effort. Yep.
Yeah. When is prom?
Prom is May 7th.
And where?
It is at the Ocean Gateway in Portland. Yep.
Not too exciting, huh?
Yeah,
Great
can I ask Al a question though? I saw that post on Facebook and I responded, but I didn't get a response back because I know at one point in time, the high school, I know because Deb McAfee, and I used to drop from the clothes closet, people would drop gowns and stuff off, and I would drop them off at the high school. So at one point in time, I know there was an assortment, a collection of prom dresses there, and I told them to go check with somebody, either, Phil or someone that's been there a while, and find out. So
yeah, I will absolutely bring that up.
Check on that. Could you check on that?
We have some. It'd be great. Yeah. All right.
Down in that clothes closet,
Yep.
there may be
Sure.
still some there.
And everything old is new again.
Yes,
so.
right. It's back in, right?
Can I just, the high school sign says congratulations Quiz Bowl.
Yes.
Is there something new that just happened?
Yes, we have our dates for recording. They're in 2 weeks. I think on the end of March, that Tuesday and that Thursday. So we are going to compete on television. We won't be able to tell anybody if we win or lose until it's aired on TV. So we do have our recording dates, which is cool. Yeah.
That is exciting. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
May I have an adjournment, please?
Go ahead.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.